Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is out today. He's got the bug. I'm guessing the same bug Robbie Stanley has. It's the bug that I now fear one day I am going to get when the kids start coming home from school and daycare and things of that magnitude. But Ian is out today. Nick Frazier in for Ian. Nick is in. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Jared. How are you?
Outstanding. It is a beautiful day. It's actually starting to get a little warm out there, which I appreciate. So I want to start on this today. Who heard Mike Borgonzi on the midday show on DVD today? I did. And this is now like the third or fourth interview I've heard of Mike Borgonzi, especially when you include his press conference. And I'm starting to get a feel. Now, again, it takes years before you really, truly have a feel on somebody. For me, with Mike Vrabel, it took a couple years before I was well aware and fluent in Vrabelese. But I'm starting to pick up on a couple of themes from Mike Borgonzi. Number one, Mike Borgonzi wants to do things the way they did them in Kansas City. That's just natural. You get a job, you've waited your whole life for the opportunity, and you know one way of doing it, and you're going to want to do things the way that you saw it done before. It's why John Robinson and Mike Vrabel tried to be the Patriots, because that's the way that they knew how. So that's the first thing. Every time Borgonzi's asked a question, it's always Kansas City this and Kansas City that. Why don't job titles matter? Because in Kansas City, job titles didn't matter. How come you feel, well, in Kansas City, we were able to? And that will piss people off soon enough, but not right now. Again, he's fresh from Kansas City. And number two, he talks about solidifying the quarterback position. He doesn't talk about going out and getting a superstar. He's not saying, my goal is to get Patrick Mahomes on this team today. He's not saying that. He talks consistently about solidifying the quarterback position. So the two things that Mike Borgonzi is a recurring theme, as far as I'm concerned, Kansas City, Kansas City, Kansas City, solidifying the quarterback position. Now, what solidifying the quarterback position means to him and what it means to you might be two totally different things. And when you include me in that mix, maybe it's three different things. But the reality is, in the interview he did with DVD, he talked about how they solidified the quarterback position in Kansas City, and it wasn't starting with Patrick Mahomes.
We were able to solidify the quarterback position that year with Alex Smith. We ended up trading for him in San Francisco. So those are the things we had to do first. Number one was solidify the quarterback position, and then start building the guy with, the roster with culture guys, and started identifying those type of players.
What we had to do was we had to solidify the quarterback spot. Then we drafted Travis Kelce. Then we signed Nick DeVito. Then we signed the culture guys like Anthony Fasano. But first, we had to solidify the quarterback position with Alex Smith. Which brings me to what it makes me think. If I was a betting man, I would tell you the Tennessee Titans are probably going to do in 2025. And that is have Sam Darnold be their starting quarterback. Look, I know some people are enamored with Sanders and Ward. And if Mike Borgonzi does the study, and while going through the study, he determines that Cam Ward is Patrick Mahomes, he probably will take Cam Ward. If he does the study and he thinks Shedeur Sanders is C.J. Stroud, he probably will take C.J. Stroud. But let me say this. Most of the gurus out there do not think these guys are that good. Mel Kiper Jr. was adamant a couple of weeks ago in saying, I have a higher grade on J.J. McCarthy last year than I do on Sanders and Ward. Rick Spielman says he'll probably go in the top two picks. Not that Cam Ward deserves to, but Blake Bedingfield at paulkaharski.com has a late first-round grade on Ward and a second-round grade on Sanders. It doesn't sound to me like those two would be solidifying the quarterback position, which takes me back to Darnold. You may not like Sam Darnold. I like Sam Darnold. I don't love Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold is a franchise quarterback. I don't think you can win the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold at quarterback. But you can win a lot of games. And that does matter as you try to build a roster, build a foundation, build a culture, is giving the team somebody at quarterback that they can at least win some football games with. And I know every Titan fan, I don't truly understand this, but every Titan fan out there, if I don't tell you, hey, they could get Mahomes, Allen, Stroud, Daniels, Burrow, Jackson, if it's not one of those guys, you all tell me that guy sucks. You all just told the midday show. I read the text line. Trevor Lawrence sucks. Last week when we heard about those Fugazi Deion Sanders rumors, you guys told me Dak Prescott sucks. And I'm sure you will tell me that Sam Darnold sucks. But again, you can win a lot of games with Sam Darnold at quarterback. Can you win the Super Bowl? Probably not. Can you win in the playoffs? Probably not. But again, when he, the guy whose opinion I think matters in all of this, talks about solidifying the quarterback position, he highlights Alex Smith. And do you want to know how similar Alex Smith and Sam Darnold are through the first 7 years of their career? Alex Smith, 80 games. Sam Darnold, 83. Quarterback record, Alex Smith, 38, 36, and 1. Sam Darnold, 35 and 38. Completion percentage, Alex Smith, 59.3. Sam Darnold, 61.2. Passing yards, more yards for Sam Darnold. Yards per attempt, 7 for Sam Darnold, 6.6 for Alex Smith. Yards per game, 197 for Darnold, 178.5 for Alex Smith. Passing touchdowns, Sam Darnold threw more. Interceptions, Darnold 68, Alex Smith 63. Quarterback rating for Sam Darnold in the low 80s, Alex Smith in the high 70s. Even their rushing yards per attempt, 3.5 for Darnold, 3.6 for Alex Smith. Alex Smith, through the first 7 years of his career in the NFL, had not won a championship, nor had he made it to the Pro Bowl. Sam Darnold has made one. They are almost identical when you look at the stats. When Kansas City acquired Alex Smith, when they, according to Mike Borgonzi, solidified the quarterback position, Alex Smith was 29 years old and had been benched in San Francisco for Colin Kaepernick. Again, it is almost a carbon copy of a situation. That 2013 draft that Kansas City held the number 1 pick in had no franchise quarterbacks. E.J. Manuel, Geno Smith, Mike Glennon, Matt Barkley. Nobody. Did Kansas City reach and say, well, we have to take a quarterback? No, they took a left tackle, a Pro Bowler named Eric Fisher. Was he a generational talent? No. But again, with the quarterback position solidified, they were able to add a player who was a fundamental piece when they introduced Patrick Mahomes to the NFL. So, again, I think Minnesota is totally fine keeping Sam Darnold, but I don't think they're going to give him a large contract. And I've been told by somebody very close to the situation that Minnesota is not trading J.J. McCarthy, that is completely out of the question, and that Kevin O'Connell views McCarthy as the long-term solution. Well, in Kansas City, where Mike Borgonzi comes from, they traded 2 second-round picks, including the 34th overall pick in the draft, in order to acquire Alex Smith. You have the 35th pick. If the two things I've noticed about Mike Borgonzi are true, and I said this yesterday on the program, I said, my understanding is, and again, who knows who to trust over there, but my understanding is Mike Borgonzi is running the Titans. The two things I've picked up on, Kansas City, Kansas City, Kansas City. And he wants to solidify the quarterback position. And for all of you out there that think that Dak Prescott sucks, and you think Trevor Lawrence sucks, and you think everybody who's not Joe Burrow sucks, for all of you out there, he's telling you he views Alex Smith as solidifying the quarterback position. And Sam Darnold is the only option out there if these two guys aren't franchise guys, and all the gurus tell us they're not. He's the only guy who makes any sense. And it is almost a carbon copy of when John Dorsey and Andy Reid showed up with the number 1 pick in Kansas City. You may not like Sam Darnold. A lot of you don't like Alex Smith. But don't tell that to the Kansas City people, because I promise you, whether it's Andy Reid or Brent Veach or Mike Borgonzi or even Patrick Mahomes, they'll tell you how important Alex Smith was to that operation. So just, again, connecting the dots, I think there's a really good chance Sam Darnold ends up the quarterback of the Titans in 2025. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. That's how we're starting. Plus, league executives have told ESPN where they expect to see Sam Darnold, and it is not staying in Minnesota, which takes me back to the Titans. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
if you find that there is no franchise-changing quarterback, someone that you can build around, what do you do?
You have to bridge the gap. I think these discussions, I'm just diving into it right now. I wasn't watching the top quarterbacks during the season. We had one, obviously, in Kansas City with Patrick. So I'm diving in the process right now with an open mind. I'm getting with Coach Callahan, his staff, our personnel staff. And we're gonna look through free agency. We're gonna look through the draft. However it trades, whatever we have to do to solidify that position.
That was Mike Borgonzi on DVD earlier today saying, hey, what if this is the question I want to get, because everyone's like, we need Mahomes. Okay. No crap. Hey, sign me up for Mahomes too. I'd like Mahomes. Nick Frazier, would you like Mahomes?
Please.
I'm sold. Done. But what if Mahomes isn't out there? And, Floyd talked about this when we used to do the old Floyd Reese Draft Academy. And he used to say that it's very, very easy to put up your free agent board and put up your draft board and see, well, I need a number 2 receiver, but there's really no number 2 receiver in free agency. And there's really not a good receiver class in the draft. So I'm going to pay this number 4 receiver number 2 money. And then you have a number 4 receiver. Or what you'll see teams do is you'll see a team that has a 2nd round grade or a 3rd round grade on a receiver say, well, maybe it's more of a 1st round grade. And then you overdraft somebody. Can't do that. If Cam Ward, like Blake Bedingfield said, the former Titans director of college scouting, like he said at paulcarsky.com, if Cam Ward is a traditional late 1st round quarterback and Shedeur Sanders is a traditional 2nd round quarterback, that's not better than Sam Darnold, who doesn't have to learn the NFL. And again, when it comes to Borgonzi, what he wants to do is the Kansas City way. And what Kansas City did was not, we've got to take a quarterback. It was trading the 34th pick and a 2nd round pick in 2014, 2 2nd round picks, including a high one, for Alex Smith. That's what you'd have to do with Sam Darnold. And I pulled it up today thinking, okay, where could Sam Darnold actually end up? League executives, anonymous league executives, so they could talk without tampering, told ESPN that they expect Sam Darnold to end up a Raider. And I believe there are 4 realistic landing spots for Sam Darnold. Number 1, Minnesota. Now, Minnesota, all they have to do is franchise tag him, and he's back for about $40 million, which is a lot of money. But again, the cap's fake, so who cares? Number 2, Tennessee. Number 3, the New York Giants. And number 4, the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't see Cleveland paying $40 million for Sam Darnold when they already have Deshaun Watson at $46 million. I see them drafting a quarterback, but I do not see them going forward with Sam Darnold at $40 million and Deshaun at 46. So I think Cleveland, even though they need a quarterback, they're out. The Jets need a quarterback. Also out, because obviously Sam Darnold has already been there, which leaves 3 spots if it's not Minnesota: Tennessee, New York, and the Raiders. Minnesota, as I told you in the first segment, I've been told is committed to J.J. McCarthy, but they will not just let Darnold walk away. They will not do that. I mean, if you want Sam Darnold, you're going to have to trade for him. And again, because there are 2 other clubs that will probably be desperate at quarterback, there is going to be some trade value there that you're going to have to give away. Now, the Giants are an interesting case because their general manager and head coach are on the hot seat right now. But Sam Darnold has already flopped in that city. So I don't know if the Giants could trade pick 34, for instance, the same pick Kansas City traded for Alex Smith. I don't know if the Giants could trade 34, bring in Sam Darnold, and tell their fans, yes, here we go. and the Raiders hold 37. So let's talk about the trade. Because there are a lot of fans on the text line, I've already kind of read through it, they're like, if we sign Darnold or signing Darnold this or signing Darnold that or signing Darnold is not really the option here. It's a trade. And it's not a trade where they tag him and then you give him a third in next year's draft like L'Jarius Sneed because nobody else is going to give him anything. There will be a market for Sam Darnold. You will pay a real price for him. Is the 35th pick in the draft worth stability at quarterback? Is it worth a legitimate starting quarterback, which Sam Darnold proved in 2024 he is? I mean, a bunch of you people out there are yelling and screaming at me that a run-stuffing DT who doesn't play on third down or in the 2-minute drill is worth the 38th pick. So how could stability at quarterback not be worth the 35th pick? And then when it comes to the guy you just hired and wanting to do things like Andy Reid, which he's going to want to do, the 34th pick and a 2014 second was worth it to Andy Reid in 2013. If the Titans trade for Sam Darnold and sign him to a contract, the one thing you have to understand is once you do that, now Sam Darnold is the quarterback. Maybe there's a possibility that he's horrendous next season and then you pick 1-1 and you take a real quarterback. Maybe, but probably not. I mean, if you make this trade, you sign Sam Darnold to a 4-year extension that is really a 3-year extension, and you're probably going to pay him $41 million a year. So that's probably what you're looking at. But then it allows you to auction off the first pick in the draft, to add picks, to maybe, crazy to think, I know, maybe blunt what you lose by giving up 35 in order to get Darnold. Or it allows you to take Travis Hunter with the first overall pick in the draft, who could be wide receiver 1 for Sam Darnold, just like Eric Fisher was a Pro Bowl left tackle for both Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do it because, again, who knows? And I'm also not saying that Sam Darnold is the answer to every Titan problem out there. Because, again, I think we now know what the ceiling for Sam Darnold is. But there is no doubt in my mind that you are better off with Sam Darnold as the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans at 29 years old than you were with Will Levis last year, or Mason Rudolph, or some of these other crap bums that people are talking about running through. Justin Fields! He is as close to Alex Smith as you can get. Again, before Alex Smith ended up in Kansas City with Andy Reid, and they drafted Travis Kelce, and they drafted Tyreek Hill, and Alex Smith was 38, 36, and 1 as a starter. Darnold is 35 and 38. They're practically the same. So it'll cost you at least the 35th pick in the draft. I was talking with Chase today. I said the 35th pick in the draft and next year's 4th for Sam Darnold. And then you give Darnold a 4-year contract at about $160 million, which is really about 3 years. Similar to the Tannehill contract. A little bit more money, but again, inflation, we live in different times. So, again, I'm just trying to connect the dots here. And if they care about solidifying the quarterback position, stability at the quarterback position, there's really only one option out there. It's Sam Darnold. And there are 2 other competitors for him, maybe the Giants, who knows about the New York thing, and the Raiders for sure. So keep that in mind. But it seems, again, if you want to beat Kansas City, that's what Kansas City did. 615-737-1025 here on the program. 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones. And boy, a lot of you want to weigh in on this. And again, I am laughing out loud about the fact that people are like, Sam Darnold sucks. I know. And you probably think Alex Smith sucks too. talk to the guy you just hired to be general manager. Those people think Alex Smith is like a god for what he did in Kansas City so that they could get Mahomes and put him in there. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 and 1063 The Game.
Mike, you talked about, I guess, Patrick Mahomes earlier, how important, maybe as you start your job, is it to find that quarterback, and do you explore every avenue, whether it's free agency, draft, and do you think there will be some guys currently on the roster, do you think you'll have some good options available?
We're keeping an open mind on this, but the quarterback is the most important position, arguably, in sports. So you have to solidify the quarterback position. So we're going to turn over every rock, whether that's free agency, draft, or, we have quarterbacks on the roster here. We're going to give him every opportunity to play and to compete. But we're going to attack this thing. We're going to be relentless attacking this until we find the answer.
We are going to attack this relentlessly And again, I'm telling you, the answer out there for what they want is Sam Darnold. Again, unless Ward or Sanders are franchise guys. And I do kind of laugh out loud. We played the cut in the last segment from DVD earlier today where Mike Borgonzi said, look, I haven't really jumped into the quarterbacks. I got an open mind. You know, I'm going to get with Coach Callahan and work with him, and but I haven't really, because we had Patrick in Kansas City. Come on now. This guy has interviewed for job openings in the past. This guy knew he was going to be interviewing for job openings now. If you don't think that he doesn't know this quarterback class inside and out, then you do not understand how the NFL works. You think he showed up with a 200-page book and hadn't looked at the quarterbacks? So again, he keeps talking about solidifying the quarterback position. I like Mac Jones as a reclamation project. If you are willing to wave the white flag and you are willing to say, hey, we might win 5 games this year. Now, if Mac is good, then fine. But if you're willing to do that, that is a true bridge quarterback. A lot of you, I don't think, are interested in that. Doesn't sound like he's interested in that. Sounds like he wants to go the Kansas City route. And the Kansas City route was Alex Smith. And this is Alex Smith. I know you don't want to give up the draft pick. I'm sure they didn't want to give up the draft picks they gave up for Alex Smith. I'm sure you don't want to give up the money for Sam Darnold. I'm sure they didn't want to give up the money for Sam Darnold. That's how the NFL works. Kevin texts in, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. It says, dude, shut up. Let him work the job for more than a week before you start nitpicking. The Kansas City way has worked pretty well the last 7+ years. Just shut up with your negativity. Frazier, have I been negative today?
No, you've been pretty even keel. Honestly, I'd say positive maybe.
I mean, if he wants to do things the Kansas City way, and he talks about how important Alex Smith was to solidifying the quarterback position, which is the thing that he says they have to do, this is the guy that represents what they did in Kansas City. And people will talk about, well, I don't want to give up that high of a draft pick. So why not Kirk Cousins? Well, Kirk Cousins is older than Sam Darnold. Kirk Cousins, I believe, is 36 years old. Sam Darnold is 28. And Kirk Cousins is coming off a horrible season in which he got benched. So you'll pay less, but as is the case with most things in life, you get what you pay for. So when it comes to, well, you know, I don't know if we want to give A.J. Brown $22 million a year, you get what you pay for. Well, you know, I don't think we want to give Jermaine Illuminor $7 million because Jermaine Illuminor is not a great right tackle. So let's roll out there with PT. Again, you get what you pay for. I'm not telling you that Sam Darnold is going to take the Titans to the Super Bowl. I do think you're going to win about 8 to 11 games with Sam Darnold as the quarterback. Would you sign up to win 8 to 11 games with Sam Darnold as the quarterback? Again, I know Ryan Tannehill was that. But you did win a lot with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. And then what you do is after a couple of years with Darnold, then you find the guy you love and you go get him. One texter on the text line says, not only will you have to give up draft picks for him, but you'll still have to pay him millions. This would be a terrible option. Again, let me ask you guys a serious question when it comes to quarterback. Are you getting a quarterback or are you trying to win the deal? Are you trying to win the deal? Frazier, off the top of your head, do you know how much money Derek Carr makes?
No, I'd say roughly $36 million.
But you have no idea.
Zero clue.
Okay. Does it matter if you win the deal? Frazier, do you know how much money Josh Allen makes?
I'd say roughly 50. I'm just going off the top of my head of market value.
$43 million a year. But again, at the time they didn't win the deal. That was a record for a quarterback. Who cares about winning the deal? Nobody knows. Again, this idea of, well, you know, we got to give up money and we got to give up a draft pick and he's not the end. Do you want to solidify the quarterback position or do you not? If you don't want to solidify the quarterback position, which is the exact same thing that this guy has talked about. You hired this guy. He got up there and he said, yeah, we're going to do things the way we did them in Kansas City. And you're like, yay! And he gets up there and says, you know, the first thing you got to do, what we did in Kansas City, you got to solidify the quarterback. So we got to solidify the quarterback. And you say, yay! And then I say, there's one guy out there. There's a one guy. And he's basically the carbon copy of the guy they got in Kansas City who solidified the quarterback position. And you can trade. Again, I'm offering less than Kansas City offered for Alex Smith. But you can trade to get him. And now you're done at quarterback. You're not going to win the Super Bowl with this guy, but you are going to win a lot of games. You are going to be able to draft players to put around him. You are going to be able to build a culture. Boo! Help me understand this. Help me understand this. So, again, we want to be like Kansas City. Yay! We want to solidify the quarterback position. The quarterback position is the most important position in all of sports. Yay! Here's the only option to be able to do it. No! That's what's happening. Which is unbelievable. Texter says, Jaden Daniels took that role last draft. There's always one guy in the draft that's on nobody's radar that ends up being a stud. And now do we not have faith the Titans can find that guy? That's the question. That was Jaden Daniels' role on nobody's radar. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. What are you talking about? He was the number 2 pick on Hard Knocks. Joe Shane, the general manager of the Giants, is sitting in his office with his 3 kids. And he says, okay, kids, who should I draft? And the one kid, the older kid who's like 13, was like, trade up for Jaden Daniels. And he was like, son, Jaden Daniels is not going to get to us. He's like, Dad, you only have one shot at this. Trade up for Jaden Daniels. This guy's telling me Jaden Daniels flew under the radar, and he was the number 2 pick. There were calls on calls to Washington for number 2, and they said thanks, but no thanks. He was the Heisman Trophy winner. Yeah, just go get that guy. There's a problem. There is no Jaden Daniels in this draft. If this were last year's draft, the Tennessee Titans would be taking Caleb Williams with the number 1 pick. It's just a fact. Like, they would be taking Caleb Williams. I mean, again, I kept saying this time last year, I never liked Caleb because I didn't like the nails and I didn't like the crying after the game and I didn't like the immaturity and, you know, me and my team when he went to the combine. And I said at the time, I was like, man, I really wish I had the number 2 pick in the draft and not the. Now, I would have taken Drake May over Daniels, so I'm an idiot too. But, and I didn't study him that well because the Titans weren't interested. But again, like, this idea, if the Titans, if this were last year's draft, they'd be taking one of the quarterbacks, the end. Like, there'd be no discussion. This is not last year's draft. It's not. If this were last year's draft, it'd be different. You just use the pick. Rookie contract, guy's 23 years old, maybe becomes a superstar. But it's not. So if the guy comes in from Kansas City and he says, we're going to solidify the quarterback position, and there's one option to do it, now you have to talk about, okay, well, it'll cost you 35. And 35, in my opinion, is not if you guys are okay with 38 being a run-stuffing DT who doesn't play on third downs and doesn't sack the quarterback, I don't know how you can't be okay with 35 being a starting quarterback who's going to come in here and win 9 games, which is crazy. Let's go to Michael, who's up next here on our program at 615-737-1025. Michael, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. So the Vikings currently only hold 3 picks in this coming draft. Do you think that is going to be a factor in how much it would take to trade for Sam Darnold? And a second quick question for you. Assuming that Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter have a very, very similar grade, which one would you pick? I know you've said Travis Hunter in the past, but if it were come down to him or Abdul Carter, which one would you like?
So I think that Travis Hunter has a better grade than Abdul Carter, which is why I would take Hunter and I'd play him at wide receiver. Thank you, Michael. I think Carter has like a mid-first round grade for a traditional draft as a pass rusher, and I think Hunter has a high-end first-round grade as a receiver. So I would take Hunter and play him at receiver. I do like Abdul Carter, though. He is a very good player. If they had the same grade, like if they both had an elite grade, which I don't think either of them has like a true elite Jamar Chase level grade, then I would take the pass rusher. But I don't think Abdul Carter has Will Anderson Jr.'s grade. 615-737-1025. More of your phones on the program. Plus, Chad Brinker said something yesterday that everybody apparently across the country is going crazy about, and I really don't even think it's that big of a deal. Like, did not even cross my radar. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. They take great care of my home. Anytime we have an issue, the first call we make is to Hiller. And Hiller will do the exact same for you. Hiller has been in business since 1990, and they are family owned and operated. Jimmy Hiller was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. And again, I know this because I use Hiller at my home. Hiller takes care of the customers on every single job, every time. And they stand behind their work with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Hatfish Truck today.
So Adam, last one here. Earlier today, this is sort of more looking forward into the draft. You tweeted out around 11:30 today, Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker, at today's press conference to introduce GM Mike Borgonzi. We won't pass on a generational talent with the first pick in the NFL draft. If you had to guess, not holding your feet to the fire per se, but if you had to guess, who do you think that generational talent might be, or do you have any intimations as to which way the Titans would be going?
The defensive lineman from Penn State or the wide receiver cornerback from Colorado. That quote told me that they are not locked in to take a quarterback at once. That is not what New England wanted to hear. That quote today.
That was Adam Schefter on WEEI in Boston. And apparently this whole thing about Chad Brinker saying, we're not going to pass on a generational talent, the betting markets went freaking bananas. They went crazy, insane, talking about this idea that, can you believe Chad Brinker said they're going to take Travis Hunter or they're going to take Abdul Carter now? Guys, generational talent. I think we need to take a breath. And we need to discuss what that term means. Generational talent. John Elway is a generational talent. That's why, even though he told the Indianapolis Colts, the Baltimore Colts, do not draft me. I am not coming there. They took him anyways. Andrew Luck, generational talent. Again, we're talking about guys that just ooze greatness. There are a lot of good draft prospects on a year in and year out basis that teams say, man, you know what? I'd really like to have that player. That would be a good player. They're not necessarily generational talents. Brian Thomas Jr. at LSU, great draft prospect. Not a generational talent coming out. There is a difference. Again, last year, there were 3 quarterbacks that people would have labeled the generational talent, top of the draft quarterback guys. But there's only one that everybody kept talking about for 2 or 3 years, and it was Caleb Williams. I'm not sure Abdul Carter fits in as a generational talent. Again, a generational talent is when these old draft guys are sitting there telling you what they say, it kind of reminds me of Lawrence Taylor at North Carolina. Nobody says that about Abdul Carter. Will Anderson, for instance, probably had that label coming out a couple years ago. Remember, Houston had him as the highest ranked player on the board. Arizona was fine with taking him. So if they traded away out of 3, it was going to have to be for a massive haul. That is a generational talent. Again, Abdul Carter, generational talent. And just because you're a generational draft prospect doesn't mean that you'll be a great player. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, had that label last year, and he was a little slow this year. But again, when I heard that, I heard him say it, unlike Schefter. I heard it come out of his mouth. And when I heard it, I didn't bat an eyelash. And then all of a sudden, it was like Schefter's on Boston radio being like, this is horrible for the Patriots. I don't think it is. Now, if they trade for Sam Darnold, then I think that's bad for the Patriots, because then the Titans are either auctioning off 1-1 or the Titans are taking Hunter or Carter. Probably Hunter, if I had to guess. But this idea that those Brinker comments move the needle the way they move the betting market, unbelievable. Back to your phones. One texter into the text line says that Mike Borgonzi did not make the decision in Kansas City all on his own to trade for Alex Smith. It is a gross generalization to imply otherwise. Let me say this. Mike Borgonzi probably had nothing to do with the decision to trade for Alex Smith in Kansas City, considering he was kind of a lower level guy at that point in time. He was a holdover from the previous administration, and they had a bunch of guys ahead of him, whether it was Ryan Poles or Chris Ballard or Brent Veach or John Dorsey or Andy Reid or Matt Nagy or Doug Peterson was there at the time. Like, there were so many people ahead of him. He probably had nothing to do with that decision. but listen to him talk about it. I'll tell you what I saw in Kansas City, the way we did things in Kansas City, the way we solidified the quarterback position with Alex Smith. I mean, it sounds like if he didn't make the decision, he's fully on board with the decision that they went with to go with Alex Smith. Mitch in Bellevue says, I love you, Jared, and I agree with you 99.9% of the time, but please stop doing the accent of the general manager. I respect you, but it's beneath you. I say this all with love. Frazier, what do you think of my Borgonzi imitation?
I had a little Tony Soprano action in there, but I enjoyed it.
My Tony Soprano is, with all due respect. With all due respect, what's the matter with you? Whereas I feel like with this guy, it's kind of more trying to do like a Matt Damon, even though he looks like if J-Rob and Chad Brinker had a baby, it's what Mike Borgonzi looks like.
That's pretty accurate, actually.
One texter says, getting Sam Darnold doesn't make any sense in hoping to get another Patrick Mahomes later. No sense at all. Trade down, get as many picks as you can, try to build a solid offensive line and defensive line. Sam Darnold is settling for mediocre, and the Titans will be bad for the next 3 to 5 years if you do that. Again, Sam Darnold is a lot of times I think people want the unknown over the known quantity if the known quantity is not elite. Like, give me Will Levis to get excited about because Will Levis might be good. Will Levis is horrible. Horrible. Mason Rudolph is horrible. Sam Darnold is not horrible. Sam Darnold just won 14 games. Sam Darnold is going to the Pro Bowl. Will Levis is not. And again, you're like, we're going to be settling for mediocrity. Are you hoping to build a Super Bowl contender for next year? Or are you hoping to, win 9 or 10 games and build around it so that then you can do what Kansas City did, which was when the time was right, find the guy you love, go get him, have the discipline to sit him, develop him, and then put him out there with the best tight end and the best receiver and a number 1 pick at left tackle and a defense? Or would you rather keep doing it the Titan way, which is let's go get this young quarterback, stick him in there before he's ready with no right tackle and say, here you go, Johnny. Good luck. By the way, the Commanders didn't do that. The Commanders have 2 starting tackles on their team. And they went out and they got a left guard in free agency and a center in free agency that, unlike your players, were actually good. Give me a break. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I feel like a lot of you want to invent things that aren't there. And it drives me crazy. Coming up next, there is a sentiment that I feel like we got to address. We need to talk about Brian Callahan for a second and where Brian Callahan fits in all of this. And we'll do it next. Stillman Company, 102.5 The Game.
Game Center update.
This is Nick Frazier. The Houston Texans have fired team president Greg Grissom. Grissom has been with the franchise since 2021, and former Notre Dame defensive coordinator Al Gordon has been hired as the Cincinnati Bengals' new defensive coordinator. The New York Jets have hired former Detroit Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn as their franchise's next head coach. Glenn is back where it all started for him in the NFL as he was drafted by the team in 1994. Don't forget to tune in tonight as the Preds head out west to take on the San Jose Sharks. Pre-game coverage starts at 8 with Pucked Up to follow at 9. You can hear all the coverage right here on the game. Now, here's your Fox 17 weather report.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Brett Luna. We finally get a little bit warmer today. We'll have highs in the lower 40s this afternoon. Friday, we get a brief cool down with highs back in the upper 30s and then warm back up again for the weekend with highs near 50. There is a chance for a few isolated showers Sunday night.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025thegame or visit thegamenashville.com.
Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. TD for the TD Power Hour in 1 hour will be with us, as always, on a Thursday. But let's take a second, and let's talk about Brian Callahan, because I think I need to set the record straight for what I believe Brian Callahan's role with the Tennessee Titans is right now. And I will just say, I think this is a pretty informed opinion. But again, when it comes to the Titans, you never know what's real, what's not, but I'm going to say that I feel very comfortable in this opinion. So I like Brian Callahan. And I had very high hopes for Brian Callahan when they hired him to be the coach. And I think there's still a chance that Brian Callahan could be a good head coach. But if you think that Brian Callahan is considered a big part of the Titans beyond 2025, you are mistaken. Because I don't think the Titans are operating that way. Now, I don't think the Titans are treating Brian Callahan like, can't wait to get rid of you. But I do think that they are operating independent of let's build this thing for Brian Callahan or around Brian Callahan or because of Brian Callahan. I think their goal is let's build the best team we can build and let's hand it to Brian Callahan to coach. Again, not saying let's get players Brian Callahan hates, but I don't think that, again, their decisions, the big picture ones, are really Brian Callahan centered. Let's use the quarterback position as an example. Do you expect Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker to pick a quarterback for Brian Callahan? Like if Mike Borgonzi is convinced that Cam Ward is the guy, and yet Shedeur Sanders fits Callahan's systems better, do you think he passes on the quarterback that he thinks is going to be the better player? The answer is no. And look, Brian Callahan is the coach right now. And the Titans have decided that they want Brian Callahan to coach. But what the Titans don't want, and I feel pretty good about this, is they don't want Brian Callahan and his coaching staff deciding on players. And this time last year, I think they believed that coach involvement was paramount. Now I don't think they do. And for the record, that's what I believe. The coach needs to be in the loop. The coach needs to give his opinions. If there is I can't decide between McMillan at Arizona or Burden at Missouri. Coach, what do you think? But they don't want Brian Callahan deciding who they should pick. They want a personnel guy deciding who's on the Titans. And just let me ask a similar question. Would you want John Robinson to be the offensive coordinator? So here's what happened, and here's how we got here, because I think there's this mass confusion, and I understand it. The Titans spent the last 2 years wanting to involve the head coach in personnel beyond what is traditionally the head coach's role in personnel. The Titans had a power-hungry coach who thought he was Andy Reid, thought he was Sean Payton, thought he was Pete Carroll, thought he was Bill Belichick. Now, those guys have Super Bowl rings. Mike Vrabel does not, but that doesn't mean that Mike Vrabel doesn't think he's every bit that coach. And they had an owner who wanted to oblige that head coach with a friendly, relationship-driven general manager. That didn't work. But they didn't want to fire the friendly general manager. They wanted to give him a fair shake. So they hired a friendly coach who seemed to be seeing eye to eye with the friendly general manager in hopes that locking arms hand in hand would lead to success. And clearly it didn't. They fired the friendly general manager and I think hired a real general manager. We'll see. So now what do they want Brian Callahan and his staff to do? They want him to coach. The exceptional coaches are the ones who get serious hooks in the personnel department. Jim Harbaugh in LA, Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, Andy Reid in Kansas City, Sean Payton in Denver. If you remember, this time last year, the Falcons didn't hire Bill Belichick because even though Bill promised, I'll just be the coach, nobody believed it. Because nobody actually thinks that Bill Belichick can just be the coach. Brian Callahan is not Sean Payton. I feel bad saying that because it's like you're taking a knock at Brian Callahan, but it's just the truth. He's a 3-win football coach, and that's okay. So now we're going to see if Brian Callahan can actually coach. Not coach and pick the players. And again, I am convinced they are asking Brian Callahan and his coaching staff to do significantly less this year in terms of player acquisition than they did last year. Because last year the philosophy was, we're all going to be hunting together. Remember that? The philosophy this year is, the personnel department is going to go decide who to play or who to pick, and the coaches are going to coach them on what to do. Again, Bill Callahan, great offensive line coach, great with technique, respected throughout the league. Why is nobody interviewing him for general manager? Because he's not a personnel guy. And what's funny is I have worked with a personnel guy who was also a coach every day for 5 years. So did Ian. So did Brian Porth. And I know how important the difference between the personnel department and the coaching staff is. And again, in some places, a guy like Pete Carroll can do both. But Brian Callahan is not Pete Carroll. He's not Sean Payton. He's not Andy Reid. And I actually believe that Mike Vrabel will fail in New England. Not because Vrabel's a bad coach. I think Vrabel's a very good coach. But because Vrabel thinks he can do both. And I don't. We'll see who's right there. But this idea that, they're going to be picking players for Brian Callahan, I'm just telling you right now, I don't believe that that's the case. I believe they're going to pick the best players, and then they're going to go ask Brian Callahan to coach up the best players, and then decide from there whether or not he can actually coach. Now, this morning, PK got all worked up about that. but I also think he's missing the real nuance of what's actually going on here. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company and your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
then Jared needs. I want to hear
He had
it now.
another one.
I want to hear
You
it
want
now.
another one?
Sure.
He had another
Why
one.
not?
He comes back and he says, here's what I think is happening. Now, he's been at 2 press conferences where he could have asked questions about this, but he didn't ask questions about it. He came back. He purposely didn't ask questions about it so he could come in here and say, this is what I think is happening, when it's not in evidence at all. The GM's going to pick the players and the coach is going to coach the players, as if the coach is going to have no involvement in the players whatsoever. You and I had the conversation earlier.
Yeah, well,
it's a recipe for disaster for a GM to pick players the coach doesn't want. There was no indication yesterday at all that Mike Borgonzi would be picking players against
or like
Brian Callahan,
completely
will.
Independent of
Independent.
That's a terrible.
And
idea.
there's no
team
in the league that is having a GM pick players that the coach doesn't want. Maybe, as I said, a 7th rounder where he says, hey, I really would like you, Brian, to take this guy, even though you're not sold on him, because I really see something. And I believe you can make him work, you and your inside linebackers coach or whatever.
Yeah.
But an earlier round guy, there is no way Mike Borgonzi is just like, these are 2 distinctly separate departments, and the team is being assembled over here, and the coach is dealing with what he gets over there. That's an old school mentality that existed once upon a time that is completely gone now in collaborative NFL. And Jared could have easily said, so Mike, it sounds like you're picking the players and Brian's not going to have, but he doesn't ask it because he wants to come in here and stir things up by saying what I believe is now I'll go to my kid's haircut and somebody will say, so I hear Borgonzi's going to pick the players separate of Callahan and not have it.
So I think PK is twisted. What I believe Brian Callahan's role going forward with the Titans is compared to what Brian Callahan's role was last year. The GM is not going to get the coach players the coach doesn't want. That is not what I said. I did not say Mike Borgonzi has said, F Brian Callahan, we're going to do things my way. But again, and I feel like I have this on pretty good authority, the GM is going to get players that the GM wants, and the GM is going to expect the coach to coach them. And I think coming off of a 3-14 season where the guy who hired him got canned, I believe Brian Callahan knows he's not in a position to demand anything more. So the coach will be a part of the process, but he won't be a hallmark of the process. And that's the difference between what Vrabel in his last year of 2023 and Callahan last year in 2024 were doing. This isn't a collaborative process anymore. This isn't a total alignment coaching. This is the GM runs the personnel department and finds the players, and the coaches coach the players. This is, okay, who's the top guy on our board when we get to day 3 of the draft? Not who does Bill Callahan like the best. And last year, I think it was who does Bill Callahan like the best. The coach will be a part of the process, but that doesn't mean that the coach will be the process. And before PK says, that never happened in the history of the NFL where one guy would ever go out there and not get that guy players with net. Do you think when John Robinson drafted all those players, he drafted them for Mike Mularkey? Do you really think a guy he clearly didn't want to be his coach, you think he drafted those players for Mike Mularkey? You think he sat there? I'm sure he said, Mike, what do you think of Jack Conklin? But I'm not sure how much he really cared what Mike thought of Jack Conklin. As long as he didn't say, I hate Jack Conklin, then they're going to take Jack Conklin. But again, the question is, what have you been tasked to do? Because I believe Rand Carthon was tasked to get players that Mike Vrabel liked. I believe Rand Carthon sold the owner on, it's my job to get the coaches players they like. Remember when Rand Carthon got there and said, we had the coaches sit down with the scouts and we had them go through the coaching tape. And I mean, you should have seen Bill Callahan's coaching tape. It was the best coaching tape I've ever seen. I don't think they're doing that. I think Mike Borgonzi is going to go talk to the coaches about the guys they have on the roster now. For instance, he doesn't know much about Dylan Radins. And Dylan Radins is probably going to cost you $7 or $8 million to retain. He knows all about Trey Smith. But Trey Smith is probably going to cost you about $20 million in free agency. So, what do you want to do? Do you want to pay $20 million or do you want to pay 7 or 8? But again, what does Borgonzi know about Dylan Radins? Probably not a lot. But Bill Callahan's been with Dylan Radins every day. So that's what he's going to use the coaches for. I remember what Floyd used the coaches for. He would bring in an offensive line prospect on a top 30 visit, put him around Mike Munchak, and he wanted to know, Mike Munchak, do you think this guy will fit in our offensive line room? Not, hey, Mike Munchak, who should we take with the first pick? So I am convinced that while Rand Carthon was tasked to find players Mike Vrabel wanted, or find players that Brian Callahan wanted, or Bill Callahan wanted, Mike Borgonzi is not tasked with finding Brian Callahan players for Brian Callahan. In fact, I am convinced that Mike Borgonzi has been tasked to find players for the team that Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker want to build, not for Brian Callahan's. And then they expect Brian Callahan to take the players that Mike Borgonzi has built for Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker's team and then coach them. And that's not as uncommon as you would think. Will Sean Payton put up with that? No. But Sean Payton's also not coming off a 3-14 season. And the guy who hired him got fired. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chad has been waiting patiently and is up next here on our program. Chad, go ahead.
Hey, brother, I appreciate you taking my call. I want to fact check you on a couple things. I think just about every NFL GM and evaluator out there has Travis Hunter playing cornerback at the next level. And we'll see how that goes.
What facts do you have on that?
Well, his agency, AVAA, and then if you go down the rabbit hole, you'll find out that that's probably a fact. And let me say this.
Hold on. You are fact-checking me about Travis Hunter playing corner in the NFL. You say that about every NFL general manager views him as a corner.
Basing it on his agency and basing it on the comments. Let me say this real quick, and then I'll
okay. So what? So give how many NFL general managers view Travis Hunter as a corner, and how many view him as a receiver?
He'll be a starting cornerback in the NFL next year. Jared, I could come in and do your job.
So you don't have a number of all the general managers that you're claiming to fact check me on.
I could get better ratings tomorrow. I know the bar is so, but my likability would be 3 to 4 times larger than yours would be because you're a hack and a blowhard.
So then why do other people not have the ratings that I have? Frazier, did you dump him or did he dump?
I did.
Oh, Frazier!
I'm sorry.
We was just getting good. By the way, for the record, I asked somebody who used to be a general manager in the NFL about, I said, this was January 6th at 6:49 p.m. Would you let Travis Hunter play both sides of the ball? This is a former NFL general manager. He said, rarely, but I'd keep him on offense. So no, I want him on offense as much as possible. Well, I'm going to fact check you, Jared. I'm going to fact check. Every general manager in the league thinks Travis Hunter is a corner. And who are these general managers? Who are these general managers we're talking about? Well, his agent. Oh, okay. I mean, give me a break. And again, on the having a show with better ratings, I'd like to see you try. I mean, again, maybe you could. I don't know. Maybe you could play quarterback for the Titans. I don't know. Maybe you could. But if it were so easy to do this job, then everybody would do it because it's more fun than working a regular job. And if everybody could do this job, then they would do it by themselves for 4 hours a day. But most people don't. But good luck in the career. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. That's 615-737-1025. Jason Fitz joins us coming up on the program, plus more of your phones. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
And Mike, you talked about, I guess, Patrick Mahomes earlier, how important, maybe as you start your job, is it to find that quarterback, and do you explore every avenue, whether it's free agency, draft, and do you think there will be some guys currently on the roster, do you think you'll have some good options available?
We're keeping an open mind on this, but the quarterback is the most important position, arguably, in sports. So you have to solidify the quarterback position. So we're going to turn over every rock, whether that's free agency, draft, or, we have quarterbacks on the roster here. We're going to give him every opportunity to play and to compete. But we're going to attack this thing. We're going to be relentless attacking this until we find the answer.
That was Mike Borgonzi, the Titans general manager, yesterday. And Nick, if you could, this was a cut that he was talking about that first year in Kansas City when they were the worst team in the NFL, when Andy Reid got there and John Dorsey got there. And he talked about solidifying the quarterback position, which seems to be a big deal to him. And he talked about exactly how they did that in Kansas City. And no, it was not Patrick Mahomes.
We were able to solidify the quarterback position that year with Alex Smith. We ended up trading for him in San Francisco. So those are the things we had to do first. Number one was solidify the quarterback position, and then start building the guy with, the roster with culture guys, and started identifying those type of players.
Okay. Well, there's one guy out there, Sam Darnold. Minnesota's going to tag him. But I've been told Minnesota would have interest in doing 35 straight up for Darnold. Then you got to give him a 3-year contract. But comparing him to Alex Smith, again, 83 games for Darnold, 80 games for Smith when he was 29 years old and joined the Chiefs. Smith was 38-36-1, Darnold 35-38. Completion percentage, Darnold 61, Smith 59. Again, passing touchdowns, Darnold 98, Smith 81. Interceptions, Darnold 68, Smith 63. Quarterback rating, 84 for Darnold, 79 for Smith. Even rushing yards per attempt, Smith 3.6, Darnold 3.5. Jason Fitz joins us now on the program, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio. So Fitz, let's start there. I do not think that the Titans will solidify the quarterback position by drafting Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I'm not convinced that those players are that good. I don't know what they think, but that's kind of where I sit right now as we kind of start this process. I feel like if this guy wants to be Kansas City, Sam Darnold as the Alex Smith route makes the most sense. Do you believe that?
Yeah, look, if he wants to be Kansas City, of course. Look, Mahomes has flat out said in an interview a couple of years ago that he credits one of the biggest reasons he's become Patrick Mahomes to Alex Smith teaching him the best way to break down his week, what days to do what to eat, and pointing him in the direction of the right people to help him be the best professional he can be. Any quarterback is going to help in that situation. But what I love about your concept of acquiring Sam Darnold is that, frankly, Sam Darnold's also only 27 years old. So, frankly, if you roll the dice, you think, hey, maybe Sam can turn out to be more than that, great. Then you have the Vikings problem. So, look, any team that needs a quarterback this year, if you gave me the option of Cam or Shedeur, or the option of drafting best player available and trading a later pick to get Sam Darnold, I would do that in a heartbeat. That's a better – Sam Darnold right now is going to be better than I think any of these quarterbacks will be in this year. I hope I'm wrong. Hope this year's draft turns out to be a home run, and we're talking about great player after great player coming out of it. But I would take Sam Darnold over any of the quarterbacks in this year's draft class. I'd be surprised if the Vikings let him go, but you may have intel there that I don't have any information, any ties there. I just would be surprised to see them let him go.
Doesn't it seem to me that if you're the Vikings and you're committed to J.J. McCarthy, that if you're getting offered the 35th pick in the draft for Darnold, you almost have to do it?
No. I think the reason I don't have to do it is because if I'm the Vikings, I can tell them, hey, this is just like Jordan Love. We love you. You're going to be great. But, we're going to make sure that everything's healthy and you're healthy. And we're still going to give you that chance to adapt to the league and blah, blah, blah. I can sell it somehow. If I'm the Vikings organization, there's not a chance when I'm in my Super Bowl window right now that I want to take the chance that JJ has any setback or that JJ just isn't as good as we thought he was going to be when I've got somebody in the room that I can trust. And I look at the quarterback position instead of the money spent on any one. I look at the total outlet of cash to the position. you can still go rich at the position, even if you had to franchise Darnold. When you combine that with the rookie deal for JJ, that's not so earth shattering that you can't get through it for a year or two. You can move some money around. So, I think internally you can sell JJ on, hey, this went so well. We just want to make sure that we're protecting you and we're still protected. So, that's the way I would sell it. I think it's a pipe dream. There's a ton of teams that want Sam Darnold. I just don't think he's going to be let go.
So I guess the point I was making was not how do you sell it to JJ. I'm thinking if you're looking at your team, because I think we agree, Minnesota, if they keep Darnold, it's going to be on a franchise tag deal. So it's going to be $40 million in cash weekly for Darnold under the tag. I don't think they'd have any interest in signing him to an extension. I mean, I think, again, it's a straight tag, right? Because of McCarthy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It is a straight tag, yes.
Okay, so it's a straight tag there. So you've got one more year. And I have been told, because there have been a lot of speculation about, hey, why not trade for J.J. McCarthy? If Mel Kiper's got a higher grade on J.J. McCarthy than he does on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, so why not trade for J.J.? And I was told, my buddy Matt Caller has covered the Vikings forever. He wrote a book about it. Like, he's in Minnesota. He told me they are not trading McCarthy, that O'Connell loves McCarthy. So I ask you this, if you think this is one more year for Darnold and you love McCarthy, would you rather have one more year of Darnold or 4 years of the 35th pick in the draft? Because that's what you're getting, a right tackle. You're getting an inside backer. You're getting a pass rusher. You're getting 4 years of controllable, young, top of the second round production there.
Yeah, but if I'm the Vikings, I also remember what it was like just a year ago when my entire quarterback room was so decimated with injuries. There were people playing that I never even realized were still in the NFL, and they were being trotted out to play meaningful football games. So I hear you that getting cost control talent makes better sense, but I think you also have to look at your individual situation for Minnesota. If you're the Vikings, you go into next year saying, hey, we just won 14 games in a year that was absolutely incredible, in a year where the Lions, our biggest rival, is about to lose half their coaching staff. So there's going to be turmoil for change there in an NFC that's absolutely wide open. So do I care about controllable cost on talent right now? Or do I care about making sure that I'm protected to try and win a Super Bowl today? So that's where, if I'm the Vikings, if you're giving me anything short of a top, like you're telling me I'm getting a first round pick in the top half of the first round, okay, that there's so much value to that. I don't know that I can turn it down. A second round pick to give up security in the quarterback room, not unless I'm convinced Daniel Jones is going to be the next Sam Bradford, and I certainly wouldn't be convinced of that. So, I think that's where, or Sam Darnold, that's where it gets really, really difficult for me. I wouldn't take the risk with the quarterback room when I'm in a Super Bowl window.
Okay. So the deal that Kansas City made for Alex Smith was 2 second-round picks. It was 34 in that draft, and then it was the next year's second, which, because Alex Smith got them to the playoffs, it was like 50-something, but they didn't know that. Would you take 2 seconds for Darnold? See, that to me is too rich for the Titans, to trade away 2 second-rounders for Sam Darnold. That's where I put my foot down. I'll trade 35, but I'm not going to trade a second-round pick for him.
Yeah, and I personally, even 2 second-rounders wouldn't wet my whistle. Like this is just me squarely dying on the hill of Super Bowl winner. Like 2 second-rounders ain't going to help me win a Super Bowl right now. Going to help me win a Super Bowl in 4 years.
I think like, 2 second-rounders is definitely going to help you win the Super Bowl, including a second-rounder this year. The second-round picks are not nothing.
Yeah, no, they're certainly not nothing. And certainly the second-round pick. I'm not saying the second-round pick is nothing, but is it worth having the possibility of having to pull somebody off a practice squad to play quarterback next year? I just like JJ hasn't even played a regular season game yet. So even if you love him, he hasn't even played a regular season game yet. He got hurt. He had 2 procedures on his knee that we don't know. We're presuming all of that's fine. And this is a team that, just absolutely got crushed in that department. So is two second rounders, like if we were sitting here, if the Titans were in a Super Bowl window, and in the same situation, would you, sitting on air, be okay with trading your quarterback that got you this far for 2 second-round picks? I just can't imagine. Shoes on the other foot, I can't imagine a scenario where that feels right.
I actually do think that we've seen, like what you're talking about, isn't that exactly what Kansas City did with Alex Smith?
Yeah,
like they
100%.
traded him because they loved hey, I know he's only played one game, but he's our future. We love him. Like, go. And they traded Alex Smith to Washington. And Alex Smith was good in Washington. They were 6-3, and then his knee got all jacked up. But that is what Kansas City did on the other side of the Alex Smith thing.
But the other side of that is that Kansas City had a full year of practices and watching Patrick Mahomes, and people in those practices were saying, oh, my God, this kid, like, you can't keep this kid down. Like, what he's doing in practice is eye-opening. JJ's been so hurt, they haven't even seen it. Like, the fact that he's not been on the field, like, they could think he looked great last summer, but, like, they didn't get a full year. That's where the Chiefs had the advantage of spending all year, and he only got to play that one game at the end of the year, but they spent all year. Players that played that year spent, at the end of the year, we're talking about how you could see Mahomes just lighting it up day in and day out. That's the thing, that the Vikings haven't even had that. Like, JJ he redshirted his rookie year. So I hear you. I understand where the logic would come from. I'm too risk averse to take that sort of a roll of the dice for a second or 2 second round picks.
With that being said, if Darnold's off, then what? How do they, quote unquote, solidify the quarterback position in a draft where you hate the two quarterbacks?
Yeah, so I would say the same thing to the Titans that I'm saying to the Raiders right now. And I only make this comparison because y'all know my fandom, and so I want you to know it's universal. Our favorite football teams are, in essence, screwed in every possible way. And that is the real answer. Like, that's not the answer anybody wants to hear. I don't believe that I don't believe that there's a franchise saver in the draft. I don't even believe that there's a bridge quarterback available. I think we are all up a creek. There is not enough quarterbacks. Like, Daniel Jones is going to get a shot somewhere next year because everybody's so desperate. The Seahawks are going to keep Geno because they realize that Geno's light years better than everybody else. If Aaron Rodgers chooses to play again next year, he's going to get to start somewhere because Aaron Rodgers is light years better than any other option we're going to have. I honestly believe that there are a handful of teams in the league that just are up a creek. There's no legitimate answer. I think the better than not chance, there's a better than not chance that Aiden O'Connell comes back and starts next year for the Raiders at the quarterback position. And Aiden O'Connell is terrible, but there's no better answer. I think there's a real shot that everybody's going to be looking around and just thinking, I don't know, Jameis, like Flacco for the 87th time when he's 4,000 years old. Like, this is a doomsday message, but part of the reason Cam and Shador are going to get drafted so high is because there ain't even a bridge out there that I like. Like, Jacoby Brissett, we feel good about that. Like, those are real names that are going to have a chance to start this year. It's just, it's bad, man. It is.
What about Tannehill?
Bad. I'm surprised Tannehill's name hasn't popped up somewhere, honestly. I don't know why it hasn't popped up. I'm surprised it hasn't.
Jason Fitz, last one for you on the program. Who wins this weekend?
Oh, man. Look, Philadelphia is going to run the ball all over Washington. Washington can't stop the run of the two games that they played against each other. Saquon still had 146 yards in one game and 150 in the other, and he's running even better right now. I think he runs all over Washington. So Washington's their fun season comes to an end, even though Philly's passing game looks broken. Saquon gets them to the Super Bowl. The tougher one for me is that I think Buffalo's a better team than Kansas City, and I also don't care. Like, all the Chiefs do is win every single week. So, my mind is telling me that the Buffalo Bills should win that football game. But also, we've all seen it a million times. I'm not betting against the Chiefs until the Chiefs finally find a way to lose a football game, and that never happens. So I guess I'll take Philly versus Kansas City, even though that's a matchup nobody wants out of this scenario, man.
Jason Fitz, as always on our program. Fitz, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a great week.
Yep. Fitz says 35 won't even get you Sam Darnold. You Titan fans out here are like, Sam Darnold sucks. And Fitz is like, yeah, I don't even think they'll do 35. Unbelievable. Phones, 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game.
You mentioned that all options are on the table. I imagine same thing in your eyes.
Yes, we're coming into this. I'm coming into with this an open mind. But we're going to evaluate every situation and make the best decision for us with that pick.
There you go. I'm open mind. That's his way of saying I'm not committing to anything right now. That was Mike Borgonzi. Let's go to phones as promised. Brian has been waiting patiently and is up next on the Titans and the number 1 pick. Brian, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Jared, first off, I want to say, man, you have a great show, and that caller before that was calling you out had no right. You got to wake up these Tennessee fans. They're just absolutely terrible right now. And you know what? You got to push the envelope. But with the number 1 pick, I mean, you have to either trade back and get more assets, or you have to take Travis Hunter, get somebody on defense, and then pair him up with that new special teams coordinator that you got that is so dynamic. It's almost like you're bringing in another Devin Hester kind of player that can kind of change the game.
I mean, look, if this were just me, Brian, thank you for your call. If this were just me, I would argue that, again, I think that you're better off going either a bridge route or Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's not a bridge, by the way. Like, I just want everybody to know this. If you trade for Sam Darnold, you're signing him to a 4-year contract that's really a 3-year contract. He's your quarterback. And I know that a lot of people around here, if it's not Mahomes, it's like, Dak Prescott sucks. Dak Prescott finished 2nd in the MVP voting in 2023. He does not suck. I'm not the biggest Dak Prescott fan in the world, but he doesn't suck. But I am of the belief that if I held the pick, I probably would end up with Travis Hunter one way or another. And I would play Travis Hunter at wide receiver, and he would be my punt returner. And we'd go from there. Like, we'd have Sam Darnold at quarterback, we'd have Travis Hunter at wide receiver, and we'd go from there. And maybe that's bad. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, that would be the path that I would go, as opposed to these quarterbacks who I'm not really sold on. And the people that I've talked to that have done a lot more homework on this than I have, former general managers, current people in the league. I mean, Matt Caller, who covers the Vikings, told me that he talked to an executive in the NFL who does not have a first-round grade on either quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody feels that way, but I talked to somebody who is in the league who told me, I kind of like Ward. It's like, that's it? Yeah. So he's got to fine-tune a bunch of things, but other than that, I got to read this text because I do appreciate Jordan in Nashville, but I think the text line is on one today. Jordan says, not going off of numbers, but based upon field play, I genuinely have a question. Is Sam Darnold that much better than Mason Rudolph? Stop right there. Yes. He goes, or if Mason Rudolph would have been on the Vikings, do you think he could have led them to at least 12 wins? So why are the Titans spending draft capital for what they already have? Guys, Mason Rudolph sucks. Like, Will Levis sucks. Mason Rudolph sucks. It's time to understand that. Sam Darnold might not be a franchise quarterback, but if there's anything that his last year in Carolina and his first year in Minnesota proved, it's that he doesn't suck. He was 4-2 in Carolina, and he was, 14-3 in Minnesota? That's not an accident. You cannot put Will Levis. I don't care if Justin Jefferson's at receiver or Christian Darrisaw for half the years at left tackle or Aaron Jones is at running back. Will Levis is not going 14-3. Mason Rudolph is not going 14-3. Mason Rudolph is not going 14-3 with the 2000 Ravens. He's not going 14-3 with the 85 Bears. So give me a break. TD is in the house for the TD Power Hour. That's next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. It is 4 o'clock on a Thursday, which means it's time for the man with the sleekest ride in the history of the 102.5 The Game Studios, and that includes numerous NFL players and NHL players and everything else. Mr. Teron Davenport at ESPN. TD, it is an honor to be in the presence of a man who drives a whip like yours.
Hey, well, that's a lot coming from the guy who drives a Porsche. I mean,
easy.
Listen. No, I appreciate it though, man. It's like, hey, listen, you only live once, man, and I wanted to reward myself, so I did.
There you go. I want to start with this. Your reaction to the beginning of, and I don't know, do we call this the Mike Borgonzi era or do we call this the Chad Brinker era? I mean, again, I'm a little torn there, but your reaction to the last 29 hours in Titanville.
Yeah, I mean, I think we call it a new era, and obviously they're both going to have a lot of input. I actually like some of the things I heard from Mike Borgonzi. I like some of the things that I heard about him as well. I think it's going to be a really, really intriguing how, because Borgonzi, he gives off that vibe of like he's not standing for the nonsense. You know what I mean? So I want to see how that type of stuff arises. I want to see how they manage and navigate that type of muddy water. But I mean, I like just, the things that were said. Chad Brinker was, he struggled a bit at times, obviously, in the private one that we have for local media only, that somehow national media posted quotes from, but we won't get into that.
Those are your people, TD.
Hey, listen, no one's immune. This ain't Survivor. There's no immunity. You do wrong, you're gonna get called out. But no, I think you could tell that he's still working through a lot of the stuff that has happened and trying to move forward and still feeling his way. So I want to see how that all goes. But those are some of the quick takes from it.
So I felt like yesterday's Brinker interrogation was like what I envision a deposition on television being. Like he had his lawyers there. We had, we were the lawyers doing the questioning, asking. And I think there were a couple things that stood out to me that I want your opinion on.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing was, we really asked him a lot about Ran and why him and why Ran went, but he stayed. And he made a comment yesterday about how the position he's been put in, he didn't ask for.
Yeah.
And that kind of stood out to me when he was like, and I didn't ask for this. What do you make of that?
Well, it was kind of like him coming out and saying that made me wonder if he did. You know what I mean? And and if you really didn't ask for it, how did you get it? So that's there's a lot to be confused about that. That's how I looked at it.
I said to somebody yesterday with the Titans, I said, the number one question that I have is one that nobody in the building yesterday could have answered. And that includes Brinker, which is why Chad Brinker? Chad Brinker's resume in Green Bay to me is enough to get him the assistant general manager job here, which he got. It wasn't like when they hired Chad Brinker, I said, this guy's selling popcorn at Lambeau Field. What's he doing becoming assistant general manager? But that Packer resume is not enough for me to say, okay, now this guy needs to be above the general manager in a almost ownership level role, which it feels like he's kind of in the executive suite level, which I'm not totally sure on. And yet at the same time, I don't even think Chad Brinker can answer that question as to why Chad Brinker. I mean, maybe Burke Nihill was there and he could answer that question. Maybe, and I say he was definitely there. Maybe he could answer the question, but I am trying to figure out, like, when they listened to Floyd on John Robinson, like, that made sense. The Brinker stuff at this level, that I am still trying to figure out how we got there.
Well, I mean, I would imagine he got some good grace with you. He mentioned the GM. He mentioned Floyd.
I'm not sure that gave me a lot of good grace. I mean,
really?
He was talking about the grading system that Floyd used to use. That
but
now
even
let me say this:
just
he
the
brought up
mention
John
of him
Salgi
and how much he respected him. Yeah,
that is true. I do care about that.
John Salgi is That's you're talking about Titans like basically royalty.
Yeah, John Salgi is a good personnel guy, and I believe he's the director of college scouting for the Titans now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, John Salgi is a good personnel guy, and I know that again going back from years and years and years with the old man who loved John Salgi. So I ask you this question, which is, how different do you think things are now going to be? Like, how different do you expect them to be, or, just from what we're used to?
I think it is somewhat what I sensed was an effort to say, look, this is where this control is. This is where I think it's more structured and detailed. And I think that's something that we haven't seen since, the Mike Vrabel days, right? The last day, since John Robinson was relieved of his duty. So I think that's going to be the difference. You're going to know, okay, this is what the hierarchy is, right? And, Mike Borgonzi outlined it. Chad Brinker outlined it. So we have an understanding there.
Nobody wants to ever pin themselves in a corner when they do these media availabilities, but I did kind of laugh out loud and Borgonzi did this in his interview today on DVD, when talking about making decisions. And it's like the Titans have pivoted to when we talk about when you guys are making a decision and you can't agree, what do you do? And they're like, well, we make all those decisions before the draft. Like, well, duh. But when you're making the decision before the draft, and, he likes Johnny and you like Jimmy, then what are you? And I asked Brinker specifically, I said, if Borgonzi has conviction on somebody, but you, talking about Brinker, have the conviction that that's not the guy, what happens? And nobody really gives me an answer on that. What do you think happens there, TD?
Well, the answer that I've heard is they actually find another guy that they both like. Now that's cool, right? But what happens if it's, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just move on to Jackson Dart?
Will Howard.
Hey, look, man, let me tell you something. Will Howard, he's a bad dude. And everybody was talking about these mid-round guys. That's been the one that all along. He's a bad dude. He's a Pennsylvania guy too, man.
Can I ask you a serious question about Will Howard?
Certainly.
You said this about Joe Burrow. Can you take Will Howard to the hood?
I haven't, interacted with him or seen him enough to say that. I don't know. I don't think so. I can't say for sure right now. But Joe Burrow, Ryan Tannehill, they're welcome at the cookout, and there's no issues, man. There's no issues.
What do you make about Borgonzi? I made a big deal about this, talking about solidifying the quarterback over and over again. And I think people's definition of what solidifying the quarterback means are two totally different things. I think some people hear solidifying the quarterback and they think that means Mahomes. Yeah. And there's this weird class of Titan fan that think if it's not Mahomes, Allen, or Burrow, that quarterback sucks. Dak Prescott sucks. Trevor Lawrence sucks. Sam Darnold sucks. And it's like, Dak Prescott finished second in league MVP voting in 2023. He does not stink.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I say this because he keeps using Alex Smith as what they did in Kansas City to solidify the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that he's looking that route right now, as opposed to what everybody, when you get a guy from Kansas City, is thinking, which is Mahomes?
First off, let me say this. Alex Smith is an awesome dude. I like the 40. I had season tickets to the 49ers at one point. And I remember going to watch them and then actually converting that to credentialed coverage. He's an awesome dude. And you talk about somebody that's just consistent, that's going to, always do the right thing. You're not going to just find that. You know what I'm saying? Like Alex Smith is a rare bird. You're not just going to find someone who completely understands, hey, my replacement is behind me, but I'm going to give him everything I got and still play to the level that Alex Smith did. So I want to say that about him first and foremost, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for Alex Smith. You're not going to find that. I'm sure Mike Borgonzi is keeping an open mind to every single approach that he could have to this quarterback position. You never know what veteran is going to shake free. Alex Smith, it was pretty much known he was going to shake free because Colin Kaepernick was coming into his own. And that's the direction that Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke and those guys wanted to go. Is there a guy like that this year? I don't think so. That has the same, capability of being that leader, being that teacher, that mentor for whatever quarterback you should draft if you do.
TD is with us, 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, as we always do. And coming up next, Brian Callahan's role in the Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker new hierarchy of the Titans. What does TD make of it? We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
then Jared needs. I again, I want to hear.
He had
it now.
another one.
I want to hear.
You want another one?
Sure.
He had another
Why
one.
not?
He comes back and he says, "Here's what I think is happening." Now he's been at 2 press conferences where he could have asked questions about this, but he didn't ask questions about it. He came back. He purposely didn't ask questions about it so he could come in here and say, "This is what I think is happening," when it's not in evidence at all. The GM's going to pick the players and the coach is going to coach the players, as if the coach is going to have no involvement in the players whatsoever. You and I had the conversation earlier.
Yeah, well,
it's a recipe for disaster for a GM to pick players the coach doesn't want. There was no indication yesterday at all that Mike Borgonzi would be picking players against
or like
Brian Callahan's
completely
will.
independent of
Independent.
That's a terrible.
And
idea.
there's no
It's a terrible
team
idea.
in the league that is having a GM pick players that the coach doesn't want. Maybe, as I said, a 7th rounder where he says, "Hey, I really would like you, Brian, to take this guy, even though you're not sold on him, because I really see something. And I believe you can make him work, you and your inside linebackers coach or whatever."
Yeah.
But an earlier round guy, there is no way Mike Borgonzi is just like, these are 2 distinctly separate departments, and the team is being assembled over here and the coach is dealing with what he gets over there. That's an old school mentality that existed once upon a time that is completely gone now in collaborative NFL. And Jared could have easily said, "So Mike, it sounds like you're picking the players and Brian's not going to have," but he doesn't ask it because he wants to come in here and stir things up by saying, "What I believe is now I'll go to my kid's haircut," and somebody will say, "So I hear Borgonzi's going to pick the players separate of Callahan and not have it."
I'm sorry that happened when Paul's kid was getting his hair cut, but that did happen. TD, I guess. TD with us on the program. So, TD, I think, again, I'm not going to say I know because I don't know, but I think the Titans are viewing the Borgonzi-Callahan relationship as kind of a more personnel over here, coaching over here than they had in the previous administration. So I just ask you this question. What do you expect Brian Callahan's role to be, especially when it comes to picking a quarterback? But what do you expect his role to be in the personnel selection in this new administration from what was an incredibly aligned and collaborative previous administration?
That's a lot, man. That's a lot. As far as being aligned and collaborative, I think that's just the way of NFL business now. And you're going to have disagreements, and as men or women as well, because you look at Cleveland, you find ways to come to an agreement. That's really the bottom line. And it's not the same anymore where you have one guy that's just making the picks. And I think when you look at this history, a good example of it, look at AJ Brown and that trade. Like, we know, I talked to Vrabel about it. He was like, "Man, it gutted me." Like, that AJ was like he was just below Tyler and Carter. You know what I mean? Like, AJ was one of his guys. He hated that trade. You saw what he did. He had to get up, take a deep breath and sit back down. He clearly didn't want it to happen. But John Robinson, for whatever reason, the deal was done. And those are things that you're going to have, and it's just a matter of being able to take what has happened and move forward with the result. And that's really the bottom line.
I just feel very certain with what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Which is that if the Titans draft a quarterback, it will not be scheme dependent. That they will not say, "Well, this quarterback fits Brian Callahan's scheme better,
I agree,
so that's why we're going to take him."
I agree with you. I agree.
And I also feel like, again, Callahan's going to be a part of the process, but I don't think they're going to be sitting there and asking the assistant coaches to rank the undrafted free agents for him. I think they're going to let the personnel guys do those kind of things.
That's the way that works, though, because you look, it's an upward bound type of movement, I guess you could call it, where you have your groundwork guys who are out there. There are people in that building who they are aware of every single practice squad player out there. You know what I mean? And that guy comes available or they need something, he goes right to him. That's what they do, But what they also do is, with that awareness, they report to whoever's in charge. "Hey, look, I know so-and-so went down. This is a guy, boom, boom, boom. Remember your chart on him, boom. And then that's how it works. So with this, it's going to be the scouts and stuff, the personnel folks, they've been doing this the whole year. They know they don't have their board set, but they know. And now when you go to the Shrine Week, when you go to Senior Bowl, when you go to Combine, all of that is just checks and balances. You're dotting your I's and you're crossing your T's, right? And then you look, you say, okay, Chris Conley is a perfect example. He ran 4.3, at the Combine. Show me where you saw that 4.3 on the daggone football field. You didn't, right? And so sometimes you'll see a player like that. You got to go back and look at it like, wait a minute, let me see. Oh, it's not there. Or you'll see like Kendall Wright's a good example. He ran. I remember arguing with Solomon Wilcox up and down about Kendall Wright. And he was like, man, he ran a 4.6. He's slow. I was like, first off, he stumbled on the takeoff. But then second off, watch the film. Like you see him catching the ball and running all bow-legged and wobbly, but pulling away from everybody. Like that's what happens. You go through and you're looking at this. And then once it gets to the GMs, once it gets to the director of player personnel, et cetera, that's when that product has already been stepped on and poked and prodded. And they're not going to put anybody in front of them that they can't stamp for themselves.
I also think, too, that when it comes to what you talked about the personnel guys really getting in there, I think that Mike Vrabel, I actually told somebody yesterday, I said, I think Vrabel's going to fail in New England, not because I think Vrabel's a bad coach, but because I do think Vrabel thinks he knows more about personnel than he does. Maybe I'll be wrong about this, but he is getting the Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll treatment in New England. Elliott Wolf works for Vrabel. Cowden works for Vrabel. There was a difference between Vrabel under Robinson and Vrabel that last year with Ran as far as what even the authority that he spoke on potential draft picks and acquisitions and things like that. I think they're going back to the Robinson way, which is Borgonzi handles the players and they get him to Brian Callahan and they say, Brian, coach him up. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fair. That's fine. I will say, naturally Vrabel's going to be better under John Robinson because, J-Rob, darn good GM, darn good talent evaluator. Let's not get that twisted. You know what I mean? And the results it's proven. Like you see it. Yeah, you have some dumb, but for the most part, that dude did a solid job. He was given a chance to carry it out as well. We'll say that. Rand Carthon, a very good talent evaluator, in my opinion. And I say that just because of having conversations with him about prospects and seeing the prospect that he identified ball out. You know what I mean? Like I remember him telling me up and down about Jarvis Brownlee Jr. after they drafted him. And you remember, I came back from the Senior Bowl in love with that dude, remember? And T Sweat, So I think it's just, if you could pair a solid talent evaluator with a coach that's just going to trust him to buy the right groceries, to let him cook that meal, I think you have a good situation. But the problem you mentioned, Vrabel in New England, I think what he has is he's the grocery shopper. He's the one going to the market. He's also the one cooking the meals. But Elliott Wolf, Ryan Cowden, those are his like prep chefs. I need dice up these vegetables. You know what I mean? Like that type of role. I think that's the way that looks. But I think if you have like a really good chef has really good prep chefs. So I think that situation could work. Cowden, we'll see what he could do. But Elliott Wolf, I think they're in a good place and they have a lot of money and a lot of draft picks. I would be very surprised if they struggle.
Did you see the bro hug between Callahan and Borgonzi yesterday?
Oh, you got to loop me into this. Honestly, I didn't pay attention.
Okay.
Like that's not really something I'm going to, put much stock in or anything like that. So, yeah.
I saw the bro hug and I heard them yelling about it this morning. I actually didn't even think that it was that.
Did either of them blink their eyes or do anything? Because I know those are indicators for you.
Here's what I will say happened. And I feel Brian Callahan, I think you were on the other side of the room, the side that Callahan was on yesterday. Were you on Callahan's side?
Yeah, I was right behind Callahan. I was like right behind his left. I didn't know that. I didn't realize you were asking me a question there. Yeah, I was right behind him.
So I was on Borgonzi's side on the other side of the room, and Callahan walked over, and he, they bro hugged each other up, and it was kind of like a, hey man, hey, like they were talking for a second. And I go, well, that looks like two guys that just met for the first time. Now, Paul made this out like I said that like Jill gave me a wink or something. No. Jill Jelnick heard what I said, turned around and gave me the like in total agreement that this bro hug looked like the first time these two guys had met in person.
So what?
Doesn't mean it was.
It wasn't emotional enough for you, or like, talk to me.
It looked like a nice, it's like nice to meet someone that I, have interacted with online before, but I don't really know.
Even if that was the case, so what? And we know that they've met before because the in-person interview.
Was Callahan in the in-person interview?
I don't know for sure that Callahan was in the in-person interview, but I would venture to say he was in the building and met him. I don't see how, well, I mean, this is the Titans, we know, but for the most part, I don't see how you hire a GM without some type of actual physical human interaction, between the GM and the head coach.
Tommy Smith hired Ken Wisenhunt and had never met him. Gave him a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
And we saw how that ended. I'm just saying, that's what I saw. I could be totally wrong.
Curtis
but
on
that's
YouTube
what I
said
saw.
you wanted the Titanic scene.
That's what I saw was just like two guys that, hey, man, it's finally good to finally meet you kind of vibe between the two.
Jared, don't make a mountain out of molehill, man. It's not
I just said it. And then this morning I woke up hey, PK and Joe are going crazy because of your bro hug comments.
Yeah, PK was hot, man. I was listening to that. He was so hot. He was so hot that my daughter looked at me and was like, why is his voice sounding like that? Because, he gets hot. It's like, it gets high. My daughter, Devin, she was like, why does his voice sound like that? And, I will tell you, Callahan was in the meeting. They met person to person.
Okay, so it wasn't good to see you for the first time. It looked that way. That's all I can go off of.
Okay.
Coming up next, Chad Bringer made a comment yesterday that, again, one ear and out the other of mine. I don't know how TD took it, but TD's colleague at ESPN, Adam Schefter, tweeted about it, and boy, people got worked up. We'll get TD's thoughts on it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
So Adam, last one here. Earlier today, this is sort of more looking forward into the draft. You tweeted out around 11:30 today, Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker, at today's press conference to introduce GM Mike Borgonzi. We won't pass on a generational talent with the first pick in the NFL draft. If you had to guess, not holding your feet to the fire per se, but if you had to guess, who do you think that generational talent might be, or do you have any intimations as to which way the Titans would be going?
The defensive lineman from Penn State or the wide receiver cornerback from Colorado. That quote told me that they are not locked in to take a quarterback at one. That is not what New England wanted to hear. That quote today.
That was Adam Schefter on WEEI in Boston. TD, you were there for the Chad Brinker media availability. I was there. Adam Schefter was not there for the media availability, but boy, did Schefter have a tweet and opinions, and apparently it sent the betting markets into a frenzy for Travis Hunter. What did you make of the generational talent comments on the surface, and what do you make of all the people talking about it?
You know, one of the things that I always tell you, Jared, is to have context, right? You have to have context with things. If you remember when this was said, it was the context, like it was said in passing. He's like, you know, we're going to be open to different, to all options. And I mean, and I'll say it again. He was like, and I mean, we're not going to pass on a generational talent. You know what I mean? He wasn't saying, hey, Abdul Carter might be a generational talent. Travis Hunter might be a generational talent. This means we're not going to go for quarterback. He wasn't saying that. And I really don't like the fact that this was said, this conclusion was drawn without being there to feel what was said, right? Without being there to hear the question, the beginning of the answer, and the end of the answer. When you do that, like that's reckless. And when you do that, look what happened, especially like someone like Schefter, who has such, you know, that guy he has power, you know, and
sure.
What he says is taken, it's not taken lightly. So to sit there and draw those conclusions when you're not in the situation, it's not a good look.
Well, I guess my thing too was it actually might be a good thing for the Titans, because here's Schefter going on Boston radio with this serious tone, like he knows, saying they're not locked in a quarterback. This was not a good comment in New England, as if, to your point, it was anything more than passing. Brinker said it, and to me, I didn't even think about it after he said it. Like it was in one ear, out the other. It didn't seem like it sounded more like he was saying, I mean, we're not going to pass on Lawrence Taylor.
Right.
If Lawrence Taylor is sitting there with the pick. But they made such a big deal about it. I do wonder if that almost does tell other teams, like, hey, if you guys want to trade, it's going to cost a little bit more. This might have actually worked in their favor, but I don't think that this was a smoke screen. I don't think there was a single thing said yesterday. In all seriousness, TD, I'm not sure there was a single thing said yesterday that gave me an inkling towards what they want to do one way or another. And it might be because they hired the guy yesterday that is supposedly leading what they're going to do with that pick.
Yeah. And I think, you know, and ironically, I just realized this was the answer to my question, because I asked about Mike Borgonzi's, I keep want to call him Mark because he sounds like Mark Wahlberg.
Because he kind of talks like him.
Yeah, he came into the media room yesterday, by the way, and we were talking, and I was like, "Yo, the whole time you're talking, like I can't help but think of Ted, the bear from the movie." He buckled over laughing. But so I asked him, what, like, if Borgonzi's approach like was unique from the other candidates, right? And he was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, as far as the first pick and what you're going to do at the position this upcoming year, was his plan unique?" This is the quote. "Yeah, we're looking at everything." Let me scroll up a little bit. "Yeah, we're looking at everything. I mean, that's a pretty attractive thing too as a general manager. I mean, what more would you want than to be able to come into a situation where there's a lot of holes on the roster and you get an opportunity as the number one pick overall and to be able to flip the roster. I mean, as a general manager, that's exactly what you want as a GM. So we're going to look at all avenues as far as that number one pick. Again, we're going to look at all avenues as far as that number one pick. I mean, You can't pass up on a generational talent. We won't do that, but we also got to look at all the options available to us as well, because we want to build this team for the long term. And I just know I mentioned this before. I mean, if I can map things out perfectly, I mean, I would love to have 30 picks over the next 3 years, and 12 of these picks come from the top 100. What should be the quote that you pull out of that?
You're going to say the 30 picks or
Exactly.
the 12 picks in the top 100.
Exactly. So what was pulled out of that was the total opposite of what I think the message is that he's trying to send to me. And then also with Mike Borgonzi making his comments as far as like, you know, we're going to look I'll have to find the exact comment. I'll find it. It's in my story. But you pair those two together, that's telling me, hey, look, these guys are putting a for sale sign up. You know what I mean? It's for sale, but, you know, no, not taking any shorts. That's how I took it.
Even the Brinker comment about the 30 picks over the next 3 drafts and the 12 in the top 100. I mean, I still take that. Like, I took that as kind of like a, you know, in a perfect world, I'd love to have 12 in the top 100. Not I'm going to make sure I end up with 12 in the top 100. Did you feel that way, or did you feel like, no, Brinker's going to make sure he ends up with 12 in the top 100?
No, I think he was saying in a perfect world that's what they do. You know, and
That's
Borgonzi,
like saying, I mean,
and Borgonzi,
I'd love to drive TD's car, but I mean, you know, it's not going to happen.
He said draft picks are our biggest form of currency. So when there's opportunities to trade back to collect more picks, we're going to do that.
Again, nothing earth-shattering. This does remind me of something Schefter tweeted out when the Titans held the 5th and 17th picks, I believe, in 2017. And John Robinson made a comment about how they felt comfortable sticking and picking, and they also could trade out. And Schefter sent out a tweet saying, Titans general manager John Robinson says they feel comfortable about picking players at 5 and 17 or feel comfortable about trading out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whoa.
Covering all bases right there.
Unbelievable. All right, your questions for TD are next. 615-737-1025. We hit them next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, TD Power Hour, as always, on our program. Ron Davenport is with us. TD, do you have a thought, or do you want to go to the phones and thus the people?
Let's go to the phones.
Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Cedric has been waiting patiently and is up next with TD. Cedric, go ahead.
It is always an honor to talk to Mr. Philly Titan. What's up, TD?
What's good with you, man? We got to link up. You know where we go.
Yes, sir, for sure. I'll be down there tomorrow. All right, so TD, let me give you two scenarios, man. I don't think there's any chance that Callahan is the coach after next season. So what do you think a marriage between Cam Ward and Matt Nagy would look like? Everybody says he was a failure, but he did get to the playoffs twice with Mitchell Trubisky. My second scenario would be Shedeur Sanders, and there's one coach I think gets everybody buying PSLs and gets us on primetime football, and that's Shedeur Sanders paired with Mr. Redemption, John Gruden. Be interested to hear what you think about that. I think that gets everybody excited here in Nashville. And as we know, man, if Mike Vick can come back, John Gruden can come back. Two more things.
If I can come back.
Nah. Yeah, for sure. But it's all love. All right, so generational talents. I think there's one in this draft. I think it's Abdul Carter. I think he's the best draft player in this draft. Could Hunter have a career and be similar to Samari Rolle? I think that's his ceiling, man. I'll be interested to hear what you got to say.
I'm going to start with the Samari Rolle comp, and that is actually
thanks, Cedric.
My guy said is on it, man. I love that comp that he just made because both guys are slight. They're lean. They're not the biggest, but they could be pretty sticky cover corners. I am personally not a big fan of Travis Hunter playing corner, right? I just, as you heard in the promo, to me, his position is PM playmaker. You're going to see him on first, second, and third down, and guess what? When defense is done, you're going to see him on fourth down. That's how I look at it. To filter through some more of it, he mentioned the Gruden and Shedeur Sanders pairing. I think that would definitely sell seats. That would definitely get them into the upper attention-getting level of the NFL. I just want to see how Gruden would be able to reintegrate himself into the league. And obviously, me personally, of course, I believe in giving people other opportunities, and I think he deserves another opportunity. What he did was disgusting, ridiculous, all of those adjectives, but I don't think that you should be persecuted over and over and over again for a mistake. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to see him come back. That's going to really put some juice into the city. I think that would be good. Now, the other pairing, Matt Nagy and Cam Ward, that would be very interesting. And the thing is, Nagy had the opportunity to work with Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he had the opportunity to work with. Actually, no, I don't think he did actually, because that Trubisky, I think he was there when they got Trubisky. But he did go back, so he got the opportunity. And then, working with Justin Fields, you're talking about players who could make plays with both the dual threat ability. I think that would be a good match, and naturally the KC ties are there. So those are all good matches, good points that Cedric made.
I think Nagy did a good job with Trubisky. They won a lot of games, and Trubisky stinks.
Trubisky's bad.
They made the playoffs twice in 4 years with Matt Nagy as the coach and Trubisky as the quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that Brian Callahan should be fired and Matt Nagy should be hired. I'm just saying I think Nagy is a good coach, and I would like to see him get another job.
Look, I would like to see Brian Callahan keep his job. I think Callahan is a good coach. And I think it's another one of those situations where give the man an opportunity to grow into the position. For heaven's sake, like, you weren't the top ratings getter that you are when you first started, right? You had to figure some things out. Why can't a coach who's coaching a $1 billion friend, why can't he get an opportunity to figure things out? Brian Callahan, to me, deserves at least this upcoming year. He deserves that. Just because you have to give things time. Look at all the turmoil and stuff that's happening. You got to give stuff time to work out.
I do agree with Cedric.
Or not work out.
I don't think Callahan's going to be the coach next year.
Yeah, that'd be a damn shame.
Billy says, TD, what do you think of Jared's idea of trading 35 for Sam Darnold? Chad Brinker says he wants 12 top 100 picks in the next 3 years, and they currently only have 8. The only way to get to 12 is to trade down from number 1. I do like Darnold, but not sure that they can afford to trade 35 away for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, there's a song, and it goes, hell to the no.
You
Heck
wouldn't
no.
trade 35 for Sam Darnold to, quote unquote, solidify the quarterback position.
Sam Darnold solidifies the quarterback position?
Well, you like these two quarterbacks in this draft. Most people don't.
Sam Darnold solidifies the quarterback position?
I think so.
Did you watch the Lions game?
That doesn't mean that he's not a starting NFL quarterback.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, a starting NFL quarterback is one thing, but a starting and Kevin O'Connell won coach of the year. You know what I mean? There's a reason, and there's surroundings in that. And I remain steady. I was texting with somebody from the Titans about Darnold, and during that game, the Lions game, they said, maybe you're right. I remain steady. A leopard doesn't change its spots. You got to see the true Sam Darnold. When it's about to hit the fan and he ain't the man, that's the truth elevating.
But isn't that every quarterback for the most part that's not Mahomes, not Allen, not Burrow, not – well, what happened to Herbert in the Texan game? He looked like crap.
Yeah, well, Herbert, to me, is not an elite quarterback. He's a very good one. He's not elite.
But I don't think solidifying the quarterback position for Mike Borgonzi means getting an elite quarterback.
You get Sam Darnold, you're going to be good enough not to be in a position to draft one of the top quarterbacks, and you're going to be bad enough to be happy with making the playoffs. Do you want that? I mean, look, my check's cash regardless, so it's all good. But
Kansas City and Buffalo both acquired their quarterbacks after making the playoffs.
Alex Smith was a much more consistently better quarterback than Sam Darnold. Let's not compare the two.
Have you seen the stats on the first 7 years between the two? So the years that Alex was
Booger
in KC,
McFarland said something that was always going to stick with me. Stats are like bikinis. They show a lot, but not everything. So please, let's not do numbers. Let's just look at Alex Smith led a team to the NFC Championship game. He was on his way to leading a team to the Super Bowl, who got hurt, and Colin Kaepernick took over. Don't compare Alex Smith to Sam Darnold. Please do not do that.
They're very comparable. I mean, they're very comparable.
Lord have mercy. How? Because Sam Darnold threw for 4,000 yards and did what he did. Like, you're going to compare 1 year?
Okay, so the first 7 years of their career, which is year, I believe, 21 through 28 for Alex, and I don't know, I guess Darnold's birthday must be later in the year than Alex's because it's year 21 to 27 for Sam. But these are the first 7 years of Darnold's career, so up until right now, and the first 7 years of Alex's career, which were the first 7 in San Francisco, and then Casey traded for him. Alex had played in 80 games, Sam 83. Alex's record 38, 36 and 1, Sam 35 and 38.
Okay,
so
now I'm going to ask you to add some context to this. Okay? Alex Smith, for 3 years in his career, from 2007 through, I want to say 2010, he played for Jimmy Ray. Jimmy Ray was the offensive coordinator. You know whose film they watched? Roman Gabriel and Eric Dickerson. That offense was prehistoric. He then played for Greg Roman. We both know Greg Roman's passing offense is not among the top 20. It's a run-dominant offense. So if you're going to bring up numbers and stats, and he played through for some very bad coaches, Mike Singletary.
So did Sam.
Mike Nolan.
Sam played for Adam Gase.
Yes, he played for Adam Gase. And that is one thing that's comparable, right? But he has.
Do you know what's actually crazy about Darnold's
look
career?
at his last 2 years with San Francisco, and I'm not talking about statistically. I'm just talking about impact and quarterback play. He and Sam Darnold are not the same.
You know what is crazy, though, about Darnold's career in Carolina? That first year with Matt Rule as the coach, Darnold was not very good. The second year with Steve Wilkes, he was 4-2 as a starter. And I still don't understand how Steve Wilkes didn't get the opportunity to be the head coach in Carolina after that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I still don't understand why the 49ers fired him, as a defensive coordinator. You saw what happened to the defense last year, but, my point remains Alex Smith, Sam Darnold, they are not alike. And again, Alex Smith, and look, I'll admit I'm somewhat jaded because I love Alex Smith, and I text you that, but they are not alike. And I think Alex Smith was the perfect quarterback for Pat Mahomes. Mahomes would tell you that, and Borgonzi would tell you that, Andy Reid would tell you that, and those are things. And also, you got to remember, like, you don't have. Listen, I'm very fond of Brian Callahan, but you don't got Andy Reid. You know what I mean? Putting stuff together. So I don't want to compare those situations.
TD, great stuff as always.
Yeah,
good to
for
see
sure.
you.
Appreciate it.
And we shall see. I believe will you be at the Senior Bowl next week?
Yeah, actually tomorrow. Headed to Dallas. Shador Sanders, his availability is tomorrow, so I cannot wait. I'm working on some things. I need to, get to talk to him. So Shrine Week and then Senior Bowl. It's a busy week, man. But this is, I love it. I can't. I'm smiling big just thinking about it. I can't wait.
It's TD season as always, and be sure to listen to Talking with TD. TD, great stuff as always.
Appreciate you.
Yep. So TD again. And I don't want to speak out of church, but TD does, I think, like these quarterback prospects. TD, you do like these quarterback prospects, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm high on both of them.
A lot of the gurus do not. Coming up next, the one thing that an NFL team, especially the Titans in this situation, cannot do or bank on, we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So TD was just on our program. He does like the two quarterbacks, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, that are in this draft. I've talked to some people that either are in the league or have been in the league that are like, I talked to one former general manager the other day who was like, I like Ward, but he's got some things to work on. And it was not like a big endorsement of Ward. Mel Kiper Jr. was talking about the Titans a couple of weeks ago as far as holding the number one pick and the two quarterbacks. Here's what Mel said about the Titans situation and the two quarterbacks a couple of weeks ago.
So the bottom line is the right tackle spot to me is the biggest need area for this football team. Quarterback, if you go there, there's other options. And I'll bring up J.J. McCarthy's name. J.J. McCarthy is only 21 years of age. Okay, he'll be 22 January 20th. He's a year younger than Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, okay? He was hurt. He was back. He had surgery out this year. Did a great job at Michigan over a 2-year period. Won a national title. J.J. McCarthy would have a higher grade based on where he was last year. His grade is higher than what I have on Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward right now.
Okay, so Mel does not like either guy at the same level that he liked J.J. McCarthy last season. And here's the truth that a lot of Titan fans don't want to believe. They want to think that hiring Mike Borgonzi from Kansas City means Mike Borgonzi will just crap out a franchise quarterback. That's not how the NFL works. You cannot invent a franchise quarterback if a franchise quarterback does not exist in a certain class in both free agency and the draft. If Joe Burrow was on the board, the Titans would be taking him at 1-1. Same with Trevor Lawrence. Same, too, with probably Baker Mayfield. They would take them at 1-1 and then worry about everything else down the road. But again, most of the gurus are telling us Ward and Sanders are not Burrow, Stroud, Lawrence, or even Jameis Winston as prospects. We played the cut. Former Vikings general manager Rick Spielman says he thinks that Cam Ward is a better version of Tyrod Taylor. And so just because you want something does not mean that you can invent it in the NFL. And just because you want a prospect to be a franchise quarterback, you want Jaden Daniels, does not mean you can just make up Jaden Daniels. You cannot just take somebody who's not Jaden Daniels, like Shedeur Sanders, and say, okay, you're now Jaden Daniels. It's funny because it reminds me of an old Floyd Reese Draft Academy we did in 2017. And if you remember in 2017, that was supposedly a bad draft class. Mitch Trubisky went number 2 overall. And it ended up with Patrick Mahomes. But at the time, there was a lot of talk about who can be a starting quarterback out there, who's any good, and the old man said, it looks like the backup in New England, talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, is really the only guy on the market. So if you're going to get him, it's going to cost you, but he's really not that good, but that's how this works. In some drafts, I think there are prospects out there where it's like, hey, we're picking at number 3 in last year's draft. And if we end up with one of Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels, we're cool with it. But it seems like this draft is like the 2022 draft, the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis draft. And there just aren't, according to the gurus, not all the gurus, but most of them, any franchise changers. So what do you do in that instance? Again, we know Will Levis is not the answer. And I heard Mike Borgonzi bring up, hey, Will's on the roster, and Chad Brinker talked about it yesterday. Hey, we're open mind. We'll give everybody a chance. Will Levis is not going to be on this team next year. So forget about it. So they don't have a quarterback. So what do you do? Kirk Cousins at this point, not a franchise quarterback. Aaron Rodgers at this point, not a franchise quarterback. Justin Fields, not a franchise quarterback. Mac Jones, not a franchise quarterback. Daniel Jones, not a franchise quarterback. So what do you do? And Adam Vingan asked Mike Borgonzi today on DVD, what do you do if this happens? Here's what he said.
If you find that there is no franchise changing quarterback, someone that you can build around, what do you do?
You have to bridge the gap. I think these discussions, I'm just diving into it right now. I wasn't watching the top quarterbacks during the season. We had one, obviously, in Kansas City with Patrick. So I'm diving in the process right now with an open mind. I'm getting with Coach Callahan, his staff, our personnel staff. And we're gonna look through free agency. We're gonna look through the draft. However it trades, whatever we have to do to solidify that position.
Okay. Again, the key to what he said. Can we play that cut again, Nick? Because he said it after about the first 5 seconds is really all you need to hear. And I did cut out in that. There was a brief pause where I think he was kind of thinking about how to respond to the answer. But here is, again, what Mike Borgonzi said to what if that guy that everybody wants doesn't exist?
You have to bridge the gap. I
Bingo!
think these discussions.
He says you have to bridge the gap. He doesn't say, hey, you got to take Cam Ward and hope he becomes that guy. That's not the case. So I know a lot of people want the answer today. And everybody wants Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Stroud and Daniels and Lamar. I know. Everybody wants that. But that's not how this league works. A lot of people thought that Bo Nix was a second-round caliber player. And Sean Payton took him at 12. And I believe the reason that Sean Payton took him at 12 was he looked at this quarterback class and said, Bo Nix is probably the best option, so I'm going to do it because I think I can win with Bo Nix. And guess what? This year, it looks like he can. But that's the one thing that, again, Titan fans are going to have to realize. If there is not a franchise quarterback in the draft, and there is not a franchise quarterback in free agency, and there is not a franchise quarterback on the trade market, then you have to go get somebody who is a lot like Ryan Tannehill. But it's a lot easier today to sell Ryan Tannehill because you won a lot of games with him. You haven't won a lot of games without him. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Titans fans, hear the name of a quarterback, and if it is not one of 3 or 4 guys, they totally crap on it. And so I looked around the league, and I'm like, how many guys exist on teams where they don't have the guy? We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
the quarterback position, you need to go in person and see that player, whether it's practice, all-star games. So that's going to be a very important part of it. And then just, sitting down, meeting with with the player and have Coach Callahan, his staff, talk to him as well as that's a big part of it. When we went through with Patrick, we identified him early. It was a rare skill set that you could see. And we took it through the process in the spring, and we brought him in the building, met with him at the combine, to really figure out his football intelligence, which was very high. And then we had a plan for him when we drafted him. We had Alex Smith at the time, and we were disciplined with that plan. There was a lot of temptations to play him, especially, when you saw him in training camp, but we stuck to that plan. And that was part of the development of the quarterback. Those things that he needed to improve on. And we had a first-class person in Alex Smith that really took him under his wing and taught him that. So every quarterback's different in terms of the development and what they need. And that's the important part for us to figure out here in the spring.
Okay, that was Mike Borgonzi yesterday. By the way, and I look, TD loves Alex Smith. I love Sam Darnold. But the numbers between Alex Smith and Sam Darnold are incredibly similar. Incredibly similar. But there is one thing that drives me crazy that Titan fans have been doing lately. And that is anytime we talk about a potential quarterback that is not either a rookie that could be great, because, again, while Mel Kiper has watched these guys and says, I've got J.J. McCarthy graded higher than I've got Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Again, I've talked to a former general manager who I think is very in tune on these quarterbacks, who says, I said, do you like either of these guys? And he said, I kind of like Ward. He's got a lot to work on. I've talked to other people that are like, yeah, this quarterback class is not good. So, again, Titan fans love the unknown. Sanders could be good. Ward could be good. They love the unknown. And then with Titans fans, every single person who is not Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jackson, Daniels, Stroud. I'm not even sure I can put Herbert in there. And the league views Justin Herbert as a franchise quarterback. But I'm not sure for Titan fans I can put Justin Herbert in this list. Anytime we bring up one of these guys, Titan fans just say, oh, he sucks. A week and a half ago, when that nonsense about Deion Sanders perhaps becoming the Cowboys coach, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys have noticed, isn't happening, and it looks like they're going to hire Brian Schottenheimer to be the coach, which is so Jerry, because Jerry doesn't want anyone who's a bigger star than Jerry, and Jerry doesn't want to have to pay, for a top-end coach, and Deion would require both. But when that was a possibility, we were talking about, well, what if Deion wants to play with Shedeur? And if he wants to play with Shedeur, would the Cowboys have to send you 3 first-round picks with Dak Prescott in order to – I'm like, 3 first-round picks with Dak Prescott? Like, you have to trade picks to Dallas in order to send Dak Prescott, to get Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's better than Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Talking about 3 first-round picks and Dak. And then Titan fans, oh, Dak sucks. Dak does not suck. Dak finished second in 2023 in the league MVP voting to Patrick Mahomes. To Lamar Jackson. He does not suck. Dak is not Josh Allen, but Dak's not a bum either. And I bring up Sam Darnold. And again, we say, oh, you know what? This doesn't count. These stats, they don't matter. Oh, he had this coach. He had this receiver. Since 2022, with the Carolina Panthers, 1 start in a meant nothing game for the 49ers, and this year with Minnesota, Sam Darnold is 18-6 as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. That is 75% of the games he wins. Over the same stretch, the Titans are 16-35. That's 31%. But Titan fans, The 35%, the 31% that have lived through Will Levis, Titan fans say, oh, Darnold, he sucks. Because everybody who's not Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Daniels, Stroud, and Lamar, to Titan fans, sucks. Sam Darnold doesn't suck. Trevor Lawrence doesn't suck. Those guys don't suck. Will Levis sucks. The other guys do not. And I thought about this because, again, if you acquire Sam Darnold, and I would offer the 35th pick in the draft in order to get Sam Darnold, the same thing Kansas City did with Alex Smith, and talk to Borgonzi and Andy Reid and all those guys. They start talking about Alex Smith and they put their hands down their pants. They get so excited. But with Alex Smith as your quarterback, you knew deep down inside you weren't going to win the Super Bowl, which is why ultimately they took Mahomes. They actually tried to take Paxton Lynch the year before and got beat to the punch. So how many teams in the NFL have starting caliber NFL quarterbacks who are not top of the league franchise guys, and you know it? And I came up with 11. And I really could add Tua to the list, but for some reason, I think they think there's a chance in Miami that Tua might be this. So I came up with 11 guys, starting caliber quarterbacks. They can start on any team in the league. Well, not any team in the league, but they can start and win, and you can make the playoffs, but you're not winning the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford. Some think Stafford's a franchise quarterback. I don't. Matthew Stafford, Geno Smith, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. And again, Deshaun is not a franchise quarterback, and you know that at this point. Then there are the teams that just don't know. Like, they're like, we got a quarterback, but we don't know. Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Drake May, Anthony Richardson, though a lot of people think they know on Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, and Jordan Love. Again, is Jordan Love a franchise quarterback? I'm not sure I can go there yet. He might be, but I don't know. Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't win, but at the same time, like, how much of that's Trevor's fault? They think he's the best quarterback in the league. So, again, that's basically 2/3 of the league. Because there are 4 teams that do not have quarterbacks: Tennessee, the Giants, the Jets, and the Raiders. And there are, by my count, 7 teams that I think have a quarterback. 7 that have the guy who even Titan fans would not say he stinks. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert. So that's 7 teams. That's 22% of the league have for sure franchise guys. And for some of you out there, it might be 6 because some people think Herbert probably sucks too. And 34% of the league that have guys that, look, Jalen Hurts is good, but is Jalen Hurts a franchise quarterback? I'm not there. Is Baker Mayfield a franchise quarterback? You can win a lot of games with Baker Mayfield as your starting quarterback. Is he a franchise quarterback? Probably not. So it's okay to not have a franchise guy. You can still win a lot. You can still build the culture that Mike Borgonzi is talking about wanting to build. You can still stack draft classes over the years in which you win 9 games, 10 games, 8 games because you're paying Sam Darnold $40 million. It's okay. What's not okay is taking somebody who is absolutely not a franchise quarterback and then pretending that they are because it makes you feel better in the offseason when you're going into the year saying, Will Levis is going to be a franchise quarterback. That's the dangerous stuff. Giving Daniel Jones that contract. That's the dangerous stuff. So again, when it comes to all these guys that you're like, oh yeah, no, they're franchise. There's 7 guys in the league that are franchise quarterbacks. And that's me considering Herbert a franchise guy, which most people in the NFL think. But again, with Titan fans, it's like, oh no, Dak Prescott, he sucks. Oh no, Trevor Lawrence, he sucks. Oh no. And it's like, dude, no, Will Levis sucks. Mason Rudolph sucks. These other guys, I mean, look, you're going to win 8, 9 games, but don't you want to win 9 games after last year and, put some young players on the field and hope they get a little bit better and fix right tackle and build your football team and build your culture and all those guys? Wouldn't you rather do that? Let me say this. Again, Sam Darnold stunk in the playoffs. Minnesota didn't win the Super Bowl. Minnesota didn't get close to the Super Bowl. Minnesota may not have ever had a team with Sam Darnold at quarterback and heard him win the Super Bowl. You think Kevin O'Connell feels good about his job, though? Because of how much they won during the regular season? Because if Brian Callahan repeats 3-14, Brian Callahan won't be the coach anymore. So, again, just stop with the entitlement that every quarterback has to be Mahomes. That's not how this works. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We will go to your phones on all of this. 615-737-1025. Plus, there is an update to the dysfunction in Jacksonville. The dysfunction. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company. Hey, we've got basketball, which I'm very excited to tell you about. Tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vandy women's basketball as the Commodores will take on Arkansas at Memorial Gym, 6:30 tip. And the pregame show will begin at 6:15. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Vandy women's basketball is presented by Athletes Unlimited. Pro basketball coming to Nashville's Municipal Auditorium, February 5th through March 2nd. Go to auprobasketball.com for more details and to purchase tickets. And tune into 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball as the Blue Raiders take on Sam Houston. Tip-off 6:30. Pregame is at 6. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
Trent Baalke was going to be an impediment to their coaching search. And it took Shad Khan, the owner of the team, 2.5 weeks to come to the conclusion. Now, I give him credit for coming to the conclusion and acting on it instead of just circling the wagons and ignoring all those meddling teenagers that have been telling him he needs a new GM. But he came to the conclusion that to get a coach that he's going to feel can take the team to where it needs to be, they need to move on from Trent Baalke. So, hey, it's better late than never, but it would have been better, much better, if it had happened when they moved on from Doug Peterson, because I don't know how different their coaching search.
That's right.
I think they would have been in it for Ben Johnson.
Exactly.
If they had moved on from Trent Baalke at the time that the coaching search began.
So Titan fans were like, yay! Ha ha ha! Look at Jacksonville yesterday when they announced that they were firing Trent Baalke, who they should have fired on Black Monday, the same day they fired Doug Peterson. Baalke sucks. There's enough of a history to tell you that he's not a good executive. He's run off Jim Harbaugh. Like, he's terrible. And yet, Shad Khan, the owner, just loves him. And I was listening to Charles Robinson this morning on Robbie and Joe, and Charles Robinson was talking about the fact that, hey, you know, Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay, Liam Cohen was their number one target. And when Liam Cohen backed out because of Trent Baalke, that was enough for Shad Khan to say, okay, I need to get rid of Baalke. So according to Ian Rappaport, apparently there is a plot twist. Bucs OC Liam Cohen has been speaking with the Jaguars in person for their head coaching job. He is a key candidate to be their coach in Jacksonville, per me and Tom Pelissero. Days after agreeing to a massive extension in Tampa, he may find a head coaching job he could not refuse, even though he already refused it. Rappaport says coaching searches can get crazy, but this is a new one. The Bucs agreed to an extension, but it wasn't signed. No contact at all between Liam Cohen and the Bucs. The Jags situation changed dramatically. Yada, yada, yada. Ian Rappaport says now he's in the Jacksonville building discussing the head coaching job. So let's just, again, operate with the duck theory. Liam Cohen is going to be the next coach of the Jags. Liam Cohen, if he agreed to a massive extension with Tampa Bay, would not be ghosting them at this hour. Because just as easily as he didn't sign it, they didn't sign it, they can take it back. And they can say, okay, if you want to play footsie with Jacksonville, it's off the table and we don't even want you back. They can do that. They probably won't, but they could. But he's going to be the Jags coach. And I don't know what to think of Liam Cohen. He might be a good head coach. I don't know. He's never been a head coach before. He was a good coordinator in college that 1 year at UK. He was with the Rams, and they had all those injuries. And last year he was in Tampa Bay, and I guess he did a good job. I don't know. I know Liam Cohen a little bit. I really like Liam Cohen. And again, if you can make Will Levis into a draft prospect, you must be pretty good. But I said this yesterday for Titan fans that were celebrating how dysfunctional Jacksonville was. And I said, be careful. The celebrating for me was when they hired Urban Meyer, because I knew that was going to be a disaster. The celebrating for me was the day they announced they were keeping Trent Baalke, because I know Trent Baalke is not a threat. But now they fired Trent Baalke, and they're circling back with the candidate they want who might have a clue, and they might be able to go out and get a good general manager to go with Liam Cohen, who might be a good coach. And I don't care about all this stuff about he's the top candidate, and I don't care about that. Ben Johnson's the top candidate, and I don't think Ben Johnson's worth a crap. I think he will lose in Chicago. Put me down on that. Vrabel. I think Vrabel, if he had a good personnel guy, I think Vrabel would have a real shot. I don't think Vrabel has a good personnel guy. I don't think they'll be successful in New England. Could be wrong on both. That's just my vibe. If Jacksonville gets it right at GM, you're in trouble. And on top of all of this drama and who did what and all, on top of all of that, I think it's very important to note this. I tweeted out today, how would Titans fans feel if John Robinson or Rand Carthon got the Jacksonville general manager job And the responses were basically, and there were some that are like, I don't care about either guy. And there was one person that was like, unless they win the Super Bowl, I don't care. But most of them were, I'd be happy if Rand Carthon got hired in Jacksonville. Robinson worried me a little bit. Yeah. Again, you guys talk about, oh, John Robinson, he did all that. And now you're like, well, I don't want him to go to Jacksonville. I kind of want Robinson to go to Jacksonville. Or Rand, but really Robinson. Because with Vrabel in New England, and if Robinson was in Jacksonville, and the Titans with their, circus, it'd be like okay, moment of truth. Cards on the table. Who's good, who's bad, who's indifferent, let's see it. And that's very exciting to me. 615-737-1025 and our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. One texter says, how mad would you be if the Titans went after Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, or Jameis Winston instead of Sam Darnold or Cam Ward? So in all these instances, I think it would be the Titans trying to win the negotiation over trying to make their team better. Kirk Cousins is 36 years old with a bad Achilles, and he was benched in Atlanta. That doesn't do anything for me. Again, the comments that Mike Borgonzi has made are to solidify the quarterback position. Taking a guy who will be on his, taking a guy who got benched last year and had an Achilles tear and is clearly on the back 9, if not the back 2 of his career, I mean, that doesn't do anything for me. You can't solidify your future beyond this year if you sign Kirk Cousins. Sam Darnold is a 3-year commitment if you make that trade. On the other side, like Russell Wilson, is that the culture you guys want? Don't think so. I don't think New Orleans will trade Derek Carr. Jameis Winston, I don't know what to make of it. But again, to me, we just don't want to spend the money, or we don't want to spend the draft pick. If you want something that has value to it, you have to pay. That's how this works. And this is what the New York Giants did, which is why I'd fire Joe Shane, the general manager there, and for some reason they won't. They got too into winning the deal. Saquon Barkley wanted a huge contract, and they didn't want to give it to him. They offered Barkley a contract. They offered Jones a contract. Whoever took the contract got the contract, and whoever didn't got the tag. And that's how Daniel Jones got $40 million a year, because the good quarterbacks were getting $50 million a year. So they felt like they won the deal by paying Daniel Jones $40 million a year, and they tagged Saquon Barkley. Well, how's that working out for them? I'm not into this whole, you know what, we got to win the deal. I don't know. This is not a trade war. This is, how do you win some football games? How do you, as Mike Borgonzi said, solidify the quarterback position? And I believe Sam Darnold solidifies the quarterback position, even if he doesn't solidify it like Josh Allen would. Let's go to Sean, who's up next here on our program. Sean, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, can you clarify something for me? Did you just say if Vrabel gets a good GM, he'll win? If he gets a bad GM, he'll lose?
I don't think I said that. Vrabel is the GM.
I mean, if Vrabel, but Vrabel's the coach. But basically, that's like saying if your quarterback has a good line, he'll win. If he has a bad line, he'll lose. Like, it's just, if you have a good organization, if you have good players, like, that was just a basic take, I think.
But again, Mike Vrabel is the general manager now in New England.
But you just said two coaches, Vrabel and I think the guy in Chicago. I forget his name. But yeah, like,
Ben Johnson. I think Vrabel is so I don't think Ben Johnson out. I do not think that Mike Vrabel can run a personnel department. He's never done it. I think Mike Vrabel thinks he can run the personnel department. Do you see the difference? I think Mike Vrabel can coach. If you had a good general manager and he got him good players, I think Vrabel could coach the crap out of the team. But that's not what Vrabel wants. Vrabel wants total control because in Vrabel's mind, Vrabel can do no wrong. And we're going to see, because Elliott Wolf answers to Vrabel in New England, and he's brought in Ryan Cowden to be his guy. And I like Cowden, but would I have hired Cowden to be general manager of the Titans? Probably not. So now we're going to see him do it the Vrabel way. I will give Vrabel credit. He did not bring Craig Aukerman with him. And I do like Terrell Williams, though I'm not sure I would make Terrell Williams defensive coordinator. That was kind of the next option on the depth chart after Shane Bowen decided to stay in New York. But again, you're like, well, of course, if Vrabel gets good players, he's going to win. Well, now the onus for Vrabel to get good players is on Vrabel. And that's the difference. One texter says, who do you see, if anyone, drafting Sanders or Ward? I see the Giants drafting a quarterback, and I see the Raiders drafting a quarterback. I mean, look, the Titans, if they don't trade for Darnold, they probably are going to have to draft a quarterback, which is another reason why, if you don't like these quarterbacks, you trade for Sam Darnold and you do your thing. Now, Jason Fitz was on our show earlier today, and he doesn't even think Minnesota will let Sam Darnold go, even for the 35th pick of the draft. That I disagree. For whatever it's worth. One texter says, I'd give a 1-year, $3 to $6 million prove-it deal to Jameis Winston. Well, you have to be closer to 6. The prove-it deals are about $10 million for quarterbacks in the NFL. The guy I would give a prove-it deal to, if I have to go that bridge route, would be Mac Jones, but it's definitely not something that I would be excited to go with. Mike from PA says, 100% on Darnold, but it's a pipe dream. J.J. McCarthy had a second surgery. The Vikings would be insane to do anything but tag Darnold and let him play one more year while J.J. gets healthy. So J.J.'s getting healthy now. Again, the 35th pick in the draft has humongous value, even though Rand Carthon took a run-stuffing DT who doesn't play on third down. The 35th pick has 4 years of value for a high-level player. You are closer to the first round than you really are to the second when you have that kind of pick. I think it would be crazy, unless they know something about JJ's knee, to keep Sam Darnold for one more year than to get 4 years out of the 35th pick. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. is presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. Again, that's TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty at tjandersonhomes.com. Late one tonight, 9:30 p.m. at the SAP Center in San Jose as the Nashville Predators take on the Sharks. The Predators 17-22-7, good for 41 points. The Sharks 14-30-6. Last time out, the Predators came back from down 5-1 and they beat the Sharks 7-5. Preds have won 4 games in a row. The Sharks have lost 4 in a row. We'll see if they can make it 5. And Yaroslav Askarov, we expect, in net tonight for the San Jose Sharks. That's it for us. Stillman and Company, we're out of here. We'll see everybody for a Fireball Hot Take Friday tomorrow at 2.